Hello and welcome to Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic New Generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. Oh, sorry, Michael. I just need to do some prep. Just get myself ready for the start of the show. Sorry, very unprofessional podcasting of me. I just need to
what is this?
Get myself some
what
drink
is this
going.
Slop?
Pepsi, for the audio listeners, Pepsi Max Michael's got there. Whereas mine, I mean, it's just a little drink I've got from 7-Eleven for the YouTube viewers, youtube.com/Benno Hamflett. Nice Pepsi Clear I've got here, Michael. And I was just thinking to myself, I just fancy being refreshed. It's very hot in Thailand here at the minute as I talk to you, Michael. I thought I need a nice drink, and then I thought, well, if I have a nice drink, what am I going to drink it out of? And then I thought, well, obviously I need to go to 7-Eleven before we start. Stuff up on some ice. Get myself a nice plastic 7-Eleven cup there for the YouTube video viewers, and combine the both, mate. And here we are. Only way to podcast.
I've said this to you already. England, yeah, it's. I've been back about a month now, and you know full well that I'm still like I was only just getting over the holiday hangover, and you brought it all the way back. Like I said this to you when you first sent me the 7-Eleven cup, and I'm not going to spoil the phenomenon that you've created. I'll let you explain to the listeners and viewers what you've come up with. But there is like, you know, when you get like I'm not
really foreign this, by the way. It is a shoot. It is.
Yeah. As you should be. I'd be having. It's clear. I'd be having it replacing water if I was over there. Like you know how, like, again, fashion brands beyond my ability to dress or wear cool stuff, whatever. They'll make stuff where it's like a black, like actually the Sunderland third kit in the Premier League this season. It's black with a black sponsor, black badge, black Hummel chevrons, black on black, and you see white on white on white, and it's cool, isn't it? It is really cool. You have created the 7-Eleven drink of them because the cup hasn't got the orange and green and red logo on. It's like this lovely crystal logo embossed against the side of glass with now a clear Pepsi in it. It's just clear on clear on clear on clear. It's the trendiest, most fashionable. It is. It's just
It was Tab, wasn't it? That was what it was called in the 80s. I feel like Tab existed, like at least like in my corner shop in the early 90s. I swear we could buy it. There's been like certain like comebacks for it. Like, tell me, write in, listeners, in your country, do they have Pepsi Clear? Because it's the strangest drink as well. Because it feels like unless you're thinking about it, because it's a clear liquid, my brain's just like, I'm drinking lemonade or I'm drinking cream soda. But if I stop for a second and think about it, it's like, no, that does taste like Pepsi. It's just clear. It's so funny. The colour's wrong, therefore my brain just can't handle it. And like you say, combining it with the lovely 7-Eleven collector's cup that you can get in my local 7-Eleven here in Chiang Mai for the low price of 10 English pence. It comes with, you can put as much ice as you want in there, Michael, as I've said on a few GRAPPL shows recently. I always fill it up to the brim and then you take it home. I've literally got a fridge full of them. I'll bring you some back, mate. Might take an extra suitcase, but I'll bring them back to the UK, mate, because I know you're hurting from not being out here anymore.
I need one of those. I don't want to like start a long running shopping list here, but I need one of those clear Pepsis. And now that I know you're a fan as well, I need one of them blue fizzy oranges, because what are they about? God. Like, they're unbelievable, aren't they?
It's orange, but it's blue. Like, everything's red is black. Oh, everything's upside down out here. Yeah, I don't get that. That's another one. Somebody asked me that on Instagram. I posted a picture of one, again, in a 7-Eleven cup. I think I'd taken a picture earlier that day of me drinking a strange green drink. Also sent that picture to Michael. Pretty much exclusively now I send you pictures of me drinking 7-Eleven drinks, as I have now invented splitting the 7 on this cup. You will be getting daily updates, but somebody asked me what flavors that. I was like, I don't know, blue. That's where you've had influence on me, mate. I like things are good. Flavors exist now just based on colors. There's green flavor, there's blue flavor, and there's clear flavor, and it all works. But yeah, like I say, it's weird, isn't it? It feels like obviously, for us, it's been a while since we recorded for the listeners. We just put out a podcast 2 weeks ago, and obviously, you know, there's been no magic of editing or pre-recording that might explain this. But obviously, this is the first time we're chatting, aren't we? Since you were out here in Thailand, and we had a physical Benno and Hamflett meetup of all things.
It was honestly genuinely incredible. In real life, I'm a person that I don't mind saying this to you now. I'm a person that like very much values punctuality, but it's to my detriment. I'm the type of person that would like, so I'm the type of person, and I want to say, by the way, like the one person you wouldn't have been getting grief off that day was my wife, because since we had kids, she's just given up the ghost on that one. But like it's like, it was drilled into me as a kid, you know, like better to be sort of like 55 minutes early than 55 seconds late, that sort of thing. So I'm always the first one there for a bus or for a train or whatever. And it is often like to my own detriment. But let me tell you, while we're face to face, you couldn't have found a better spot in the whole wide world to sort of be whatever it was, like an hour delayed in a taxi crash. Because to let the listeners and the viewers in, you saw the picture online because you spent a lot of time analysing which of our knees was in the House of Black. But like,
I think you only had Will Cooling on it, mate. I think that's what funny was. But the Instagram filters, like, it's got a lot to answer for.
If that bar in the background like looked like it was just this sort of, I don't know, this like wooden hut on sticks. It was a bar that my brother recommended that is just based. It literally, when I say on a river, I literally mean on a river where you can sit looking out. You can't even see the concrete below because you're just out on the waterfront. And it was the first time my wife and I had been along that side of the river while we were on holiday, and just watching the boats going by, looking at some of the amazing buildings around there, looking at it was Thailand, it was Bangkok, so there was just as many sort of like incredibly high-rise posh buildings as there was like tiny little huts that everywhere you looked. Like you could have been 5 hours late and I wouldn't have been having a bad time. Do you know what I mean? It was of all the, if it might have been different if like we were going to do again one of our Belfast meetups, or I was going to come to Liverpool, your neck of the woods, or you were going to come to the Northeast, then we might have had to have like a quiet word. But it was just like, oh, Benno's going to be another half an hour. That was it, yeah. But it's like, Benno's going to be another half an hour. Should we just have another like beautiful freezing cold lager on the waterfront? It couldn't have been nicer.
It was hard. I feel so bad about it. Like, obviously, you were there with the family visit, and I was at that point pretty much living in Bangkok. I've been there a couple of months, or at least for a couple of visits. Here's me thinking it's the same as like London or New York or somewhere. Like, I've stayed in like the center of Manhattan and got an Uber to Brooklyn, and it's taken like 15 minutes. At least I'll feel like I remember it. And I've been in an Uber on another day, and it's taken 2 hours. Bangkok's exactly the same. I'm not quite you, Michael. Like, I'm someone who's like, if I've got to be there at 11. If I get there at 5 to 11, that'll do. That's usually what I'll aim for. I think we were planning on meeting. It was something like 1 in the afternoon, wasn't it? And like I did, I booked my Uber. It said on the Grab, actually, in the Thailand territory. I think it said it would be like a 25-minute journey. It's like, oh, that's good. I'll be there a little bit early. Able to get like a nice little spec in this bar that I beat Michael in, and obviously your lovely wife Adele. And I got in the cab. First thing is Grab over there, a bit like Uber in America. It's not always a proper taxi driver. A lot of the time, it's just a bloke with a car. I'm pretty sure I got a bloke with the car that day. He got lost. He drove in different directions. He got stuck in traffic. His phone overheated at one point. I had to hand him my phone so we could use Google Maps on my phone to try and find his way. Like, we got stuck behind like buses, cars, all kinds. And yeah, literally, while Michael was having a lovely drink on the waterfront, I was having a panic attack in the back of this cab. It was genuinely a 25-minute journey. I'm pretty sure it took the bulk of 2 hours. Like, it was literally 2 hours. I was sat in the back of that cab, and I felt so bad because you're in the middle of like your family holiday and stuff. And like, I've obviously, my job is my podcast at this point, so the world is my oyster. Yeah, it's my town, Michael. So I felt terrible when I came rushing in there sweating. But what a sight it was, though, just to see you in person. I said it to you off air. Obviously, I saw my mum, my stepdad in Thailand last week as well. It felt wrong just seeing you in physical form, like just there, like in this. Like, I know the world's a big place, but it didn't feel right that we were somehow geographically right there in person, mate. Could have kissed you, but we settled for a hug instead. But I felt very bad.
It did feel like I was in your territory. I was like, I'm in the Benno-verse at this point. I remember sort of like every time if I was asking you a question about a place, it was almost like I was treating you as like a travel guide or something. Because it's like, yeah, he knows his way around at this point. It almost wouldn't be the same now. Like at some point, I was saying to you when we were over there, it's criminal really. I've probably been like out in Liverpool like less than 5 times ever. But at this point, it like, what's the point in meeting you like where you're from or where you live? Yeah. Like it need only be now in like sort of far-flung special occasion. That seems to be what it is. Like, it feels like the next time, if like this time next year, or like, should I say like the start of next year, if like me and maybe Matty of GRAPPL have been able to twist your arm and convince you that like, come on, fly via Vegas for a weekend in April. Like, that makes sense. A pint in Vegas makes sense. But a pint on the Albert Dock, I'd be like, what, Benno, what are you doing here? Like, it doesn't sort of track at this point, you know?
Oh, we've got to add another continent now. We've got to find another way to get in. Yeah. But like, yeah, we had to do it. It was just like, again, you say that, like, for me, because it was a holiday for you and you it felt like you saw there was areas like the area we were in, not an area of Bangkok I was particularly familiar with. Like I ended up spending the day around there. Like you, obviously the Chinatown and all kinds. You were giving me tips at the end of it. Like you sounded like you got all over the city. Like I say, I have my little haunts. I've got my 7-Eleven at the end of the road, and I've got the main Sukhumvit area, which is where I spend most of my time. But yeah, you got way more done. I've been here, but I was here 6 months, and I think I got less done than you did in those 2 weeks.
My brother is living over there and gave us like a really cool itinerary of things to do, but that's the pressure of it being 2 weeks, isn't it? You've got to go mad a bit, and you've got to like everything's whistle stop, so you get this like little, it's almost like you get a sampler of everything, and then like just whatever it was that you loved, maybe in God knows how many years to come, if I can ever save up again, I'd go back and I'd go there or something like that. It's just, it doesn't feel like the last time, but it feels like it's going to be a little while. That's what I'll say about like, especially because of like how far it was to go as well. It was awesome being
with the kids as well.
Like taking them to sort of like being able to tell them and I don't think I could fully get it through to them. Like when we'd been to an island while we were over there that me and you have spoken about, like Koh Samet, and it was just like, this is the furthest away from anywhere I've ever been in my entire life. And then I'm like looking at my sort of like my 12-year-old and my 9-year-old and being like, you've got to try and top this in your life at some point. You've got to try and somehow get further away than this. Like it's just it took me and your mum till our 40s to be this remote, albeit with fantastic Wi-Fi, but like, you know, like sort of this remote. It was incredible.
When we were kids, we'd go to like Mallorca. That'd be like because we started like our early holidays. I don't know, did you ever do like the British family thing where you go to Butlins? We were a Butlins family in the early 90s.
Skegness was the big one.
Yeah. Skegness was. We went to Minehead a couple of times as well. That was we talked on the list.
On the podcast, we reckon we were at the same wrestling show, or the identical show, GRAPPL, didn't we? the Danny Boy Collins Battle Royal era. Like we were definitely there.
Yeah, in my head, I'm thinking these are all big television stars, and they were probably just literally leftovers from All-Star Wrestling back in the day. Oh, of course we did, yeah. But like that's the thing, like growing up as a kid, like we just did that. We didn't really do the British holiday thing. We just did the British holiday camp thing. And then when we started going to like Mallorca and stuff like that, like literally, I remember being on holiday, like getting my dad to show me a map to see how far away we were from home. And like actually in the grand scheme of things, we really weren't that far from home. We were a 2-hour flight away from home. Whereas like, for your kids, they've experienced like something like the other side of the world. There you go. And Benno and Hamflett have experienced something the other side of the world as well. Like I say,
Indeed.
We need to pick another continent now. It'll be somewhere in America, maybe somewhere we could figure out some reason to meet up and do it again and get a pint. But the pints won't be as lovely, they won't be as cheap, and the view won't be as good either. So I don't know.
That's true. That can be a part of the test. We're never going to get them as cheap again, but we've got to at least find somewhere with a view that's half as nice. I think that's the trick. And I will say, like there was something about the universe in balance. Your grab nightmare became like one of the highlights of my entire trip, because our grab turned up to pick us up, and it was to foreshadow what we're going to talk about on this very podcast. It was only like a jet black pickup truck. It might as well have had the skull on the back and the glass smashing. It was unbelievable. This thing that just pulled up to pick us up.
I was wondering whether you'd like slipped an extra tenner to the Grab app to give you like the Stone Cold Steve Austin option or something. I was watching you drive up like, fucking hell, what a way to make an exit, young Michael. You did well.
The full £3 experience, you know.
The proper stuff. But yeah, did it live up to expectations, Thailand in general, Bangkok? Because I know, obviously, from listening to WhatCulture, I think I broke to the news to you in person. I was like, I listened yesterday. Doesn't sound like the lads are confident that you're gonna love it here. But I always knew there's a bit of neon. It's a great night city. You know, there's plenty of sights. The 7-Elevens, if you're stuck. I know you spent a fair amount of time in there at your bemused wife's amusement. But yeah, I was pretty confident you'd enjoy it, at least more so than the lads. So hopefully we didn't build you up too much.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I'm a big city holiday person anyway. And as a result of that, it's meant that sort of that's taken a bit of a backseat since we had kids, because they're not necessarily like the likes of New York and that. It's not the best place to take kids when they're little. It's the sort of thing maybe you want to get them a little bit older or whatever. Or certainly it's not easy on you as a parent. But like we got the best of every world, because like my brother lives in he's quite fortunate. Like he lives in a building that's got its own, like it's not a big one, but like its own little swimming pool on the bottom bit. So the kids getting to wake up every morning and like dick about in the swimming pool, and then like that being the start of every day. And then me and Adele being able to dip out to Bangkok for a couple of hours. And then again, like he
And an
booked
extra
us in.
couple hours
So
while you wait for me. Yeah,
that's yeah. Well, there was nothing like that. Was like it was a hands up. It was like, you're not going to believe it. He's running late. Can you keep them busy a couple of extra hours? You know.
Oh, you got worked out then. I don't feel so bad.
That's it. Yeah, bought us more time. And then going to this one incredible desert island, like it's off a bloody Survivor season, and then going to another. Going to it was a place called Hua Hin, which is not, I suppose, not a million miles away from where you are now. It's on at least that side of the world, and just seeing sort of different bits of it, like going up this. I'm terrified of all animals. I mention this in the podcast all the time. But going up Monkey Mountain in Hua Hin in a car in this it's for those that have been to safari parks in the UK or whatever, where the monkeys rip the windscreen wipers off, whatever. The monkeys aren't bothered that you're in the car there. They don't care, but it's because it's their house that you're driving through, and you best just respect it. Like the point where this bloke came out with the bananas and just tipped them on the ground, and you're looking around and there's maybe sort of 20 odd monkeys that are just living wild and happy in their mountain. You're like, this is pretty amazing. And then the bananas drop, and suddenly it's 28 days later, and just hundreds of them come fucking from nowhere. And there was I remember looking out the window and seeing this thing that just said toilet, and then it was suddenly surrounded by I don't know, 100 monkeys. Yeah, I'll hold it. It's fine. I'll wait. So seeing that was pretty amazing. Seeing them a memory that will stick with me forever, and will perhaps stick with my youngest son, is finding there's one of life's great gifts if you're English and you're a football fan, is watching your team abroad, isn't it? I can't explain why, but there's something class about watching your team abroad, and
time difference as well. 2 a.m. and the game's on.
Yeah, it's the best. And as a family, I don't get to watch obviously many games with my brother and my nephew, with us being so far apart. And for my brother, my nephew, and my boys, for us all to watch Sunderland's return to the Premier League and end the game top of the league, at this point, that's how my youngest son's getting his first taste of lager. That's how there's a picture of him now holding a pint of Chang, because he knew that his dad was vulnerable. He was I'm quite emotional here. So he pulls up his he says, "Oh, Dad, can I have a look at the Premier League on your phone?" And I know what's coming. And he seeing him stare at it and seeing that we're top of the Premier League, and he's just it's unbelievable. I was like, "Here you go, kid. Have a drink. I love you. God, I'm so happy." Great memories. Genuinely great memories. Yeah, just to be that part of the world, because that's going to be the sort of thing in years to come when inevitably we're just coffin dodgers, or we're getting relegated. They're going to say, "Where were you when we were top?" Well, I was there when we were top, and it's just a lot of memories made. Nice time. Elephants. Saw some shoot elephants, Benno.
Nice. I've still not seen one. I've seen a single elephant.
Man,
I believe there's a lot in Chiang Mai. I'm in the mountains here. I'll find them at some point. But yeah, that's
there's a lot of we were told at the sanctuary that we were at that there's a lot of them that don't treat them well, but you can find good ones that look after their elephants and stuff. You can't ride them anymore if you go to a good one. It's that's it's good that's been
wedding ceremonies and stuff like that. It used to be big, didn't it? They'd be riding around on the beach on them by agreement and all that. Yeah.
It's not a thing now, but you can go to the ones that the more sort of protective sanctuaries and that, and just have a walk around the wild area where they're allowed to sort of walk back and then give them a wash with a big hose. And the kids washing an elephant was well, you're not going to get that at Alton Towers next year. I'm really sorry. We cannot follow this for it's 5 years of saving before we do anything like this again.
Incredible. It's just so funny that you're seeing all these animals. The only stuff that I'm seeing geckos in my flat. I just had to clean out, but I'm not 100% sure there might have been a cockroach in the bathroom. I'm in a lovely flat. It's amazing, but you can be in a 5-star resort here in Thailand and stuff like that's going to happen. And really all I'm seeing is here in Chiang Mai, I'm seeing the 7-Eleven at the end of the street, and I'm seeing all the coffee shops and smoothie bowl places down the road. There you go. That's you're seeing the proper Thailand, mate. I'm seeing the Brooklyn hipster impression of Thailand. Here, so I need to take a few leaves from you. But that's the thing, massive memories, aren't they? Stuff like that. It's stuff that I'm always going to look back on. I'm just so glad you could get out of here. I'm
all the more impressed with you for doing it, because when we got to the airport and my brother was picking us up, thankfully, but I was looking, when you you go to a different, and it's always America for me, but even if you say the first time you go to New York and you're out and about a ticket for the subway or the metro, and you just need a minute to be right, what ticket am I buying here? Where am I going? What's the zone? Whatever. I was sort of imagining in my head, it's globalization. The world's become, and we're English, we're bullies. Our language has bullied the whole world into just accepting our way of thinking. And while I was waiting in this car park for my brother picking us up, I looked at like the train ticket machine, and I was just having a moment thinking like, God, after 24 hours of travel with like a tired family, I just imagined having to like navigate this train network. And I was suddenly like, the enormity of it suddenly hit me that like, if that's what I was doing and I was having to do it for real. So we got babied through it. Like you've done it the real way. So you have my admiration for it, because there was a couple of hairy moments maybe where just like an over exuberant grab driver, and it just reminds you that the roads are this like no holds barred. And like going on we did a tuk-tuk tour, and it was amazing. And it couldn't have been more like, in terms of the places we visited, it couldn't have been cooler to see things. But the drivers were just keen to get there. So they weren't asked if you were sort of suddenly ducking and weaving and you realize, hang on, there's no walls on this thing. Like, hold on. It was
There's
something
no
else.
gap too small, is there? They'll find a way. Like I think I said to you on one of these housekeepings, like I went on the back of a grab bike, never again. Only went about 5 minutes down the road, and I was literally gripping the driver. I had like both hands around them, both thighs around them, just making sure I was going to fall off the side. I am not built for that. And then you see like the locals, like literally you see whole families. You'll see like 4 or 5, like with 2 kids on the back and a dog, like sat there like between the fellas' like legs as he's riding down the street. And it's the most comfortable, chilled experience in the world. All the while, the driver is literally doing that, like ducking in between traffic and finding all those little spaces. Yeah, the born difference out here, mate. So I wouldn't have done any better. Absolutely not.
No, I think it was incredible. Honestly, man, seeing kids on tablets in moped footwells is something that's going to at 60 miles an hour, it's just going to stick with me forever. Yeah.
Feet up, sat on the back of these mopeds out there. Oh, it's an incredible place. Like, I'm just fortunate to get to be out here. But like I say, made up, I got to see it. Obviously, I've seen a couple of people there recently. It's given me that little like link to home and stuff like that as well. So it had to be done. Then it's weird. It's like there's been a couple of people from like my office who found their way to Thailand over the last while, and that one's been weird because it's like, if we were both in Liverpool, would we meet up? And I'm thinking we probably wouldn't. So I'm not going to send a DM. I feel like our relationship's very different, mate, and I had to meet you in person and see you there. We got a photo for the ages as well, so it was
absolutely, man. Honestly, it's one to add to the collection for sure.
Great stuff. But yeah, that's obviously a big thing that we've both been up to over the last while. And obviously, the other thing to kind of to do is our homework. Obviously, with getting back in here with the housekeeping, mate. And fuck me, have we got a lot to get through to today. People will have to forgive us for, obviously, again, this being our first one back since Michael's travels and me being moving on to Chiang Mai. We couldn't have done a 5-star match review today. Basically, we've got about 8 5-star match reviews to do. They're just all promos and segments, and most of them involve Stone Cold Steve Austin pretty much to go through today. But we've said it offline, haven't we, mate, when it comes to this show? And I think I felt it when I've been plugging it on GRAPPL, going, oh yeah, we've got a Benno and Hamflett coming up soon. Like, I feel like for me, we've moved in fast forward. Like, it feels like it was only a couple of months ago, mate, we were living in like this sunny, colourful WWF world with British Bulldog main events and lovely 5-match shows on these in your houses, and not much happening in between as far as the stitching goes. And now it feels like we've literally fast forwarded on one of those bullet trains or one of those quick train lines in Bangkok to find ourselves very much in Stone Cold Steve Austin's world. And as you said on the last housekeeping and the last In Your House review, it's only 1996 and we're already off to the races, mate.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, so we, for those, I'm assuming this isn't anybody's first listen, but if this is your first listen to this podcast, welcome to the podcast. Please go and listen to the rest of the archive. But yeah, the purpose of the housekeeping has always been, we kind of put it in just to provide stitching between the In Your Houses, because often it would be like a big 4 pay-per-view, or there'd be serious events that would lead to one of the big matches or whatever. The game is changing, and you could feel this in the last housekeeping. And, for a variety of reasons, some of which we've covered. But to pull the curtain back a little bit on account of some of the travels and the various things we've been talking about, we did have to, we banked quite a lot of things. So we put a lot of time in to record a few, as many as possible. And we gave ourselves like a sort of ultimately a window of around a month, maybe a month and a half, before we've come back to record this one today. And that month and a half is roughly the same period between Buried Alive in Your House and It's Time in Your House, the next one in our In Your House chronology. That month and a half feels like it packed in about 6 years of content.
Honestly.
I said, and I was like, And I've had some lovely feedback, by the way. So thank you to those on Twitter that enjoyed my impassioned defense of not so much fake Razor and Diesel, but the Jim Ross heel turn in particular. And I kind of stuck my neck out on that one because I said, and I was trying to articulate the point that, like, yes, Jim Ross was never going to wrestle. And yes, that heel turn was never, in theory, going to draw any money. But I have always really quite steadfastly believed that Jim Ross turning heel, like, ripped at the fabric of the World Wrestling Federation in such a way that suddenly a million other things could happen. Like, that peeled back something that had never been peeled back before. And it was like, right, which characters are going to jump into this new space that this Jim Ross heel turn has kind of helped cultivate? And the answer ultimately is one massive one in Stone Cold Steve Austin. But for this particular period of WWE, 4, and we were sort of talking about it in the I was like, I don't want to use the phrase 4 pillars because it kind of got accidentally bastardized by AEW in like an earnest attempt to kind of tell this story of, right, who are the 4 characters that are going to kind of inherit the earth? And ultimately, only one character inherits the earth of these 4 in Steve Austin. But these 4 men, these 4 overlapping characters, feel like they inherit the World Wrestling Federation over this short period of time in a way that I don't think we've ever experienced, certainly in this podcast's timeline. I'm talking, of course, of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Psycho Sid. These 4 men are going to wrestle in the 2 biggest matches at the Survivor Series. And ultimately, they're going to feature all overlapping with one another in our next review of In Your House, It's Time. However, the gap all of a sudden between what these 4 men are up to and the entire rest of the company is Grand Canyon sized. And we have a bit of a laugh about me being Dr. Fed and all my biases that I wear on my sleeve with my beating World Wrestling Federation heart. But I put it to you that the stuff we're about to talk about today was going head to head with the WCW that, yes, was on fire, a WCW that was still not even reaching the ceiling it would reach with the NWO, a WCW that had not even begun to touch the sides with what it was going to do with the Sting Crow character, but a WCW that was running with Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper against this World Wrestling Federation that we're about to talk about here. Like, it's a quite remarkable month and a half period in US North American wrestling, isn't it? You know,
it's funny that because, like, when I was doing the homework and like watching some of these clips that you've very handily put together, maybe we'll sneak them in the show notes. This chronology of events that go on. Once they finished, and it was a lovely playlist, we've obviously you got the clips and I farmed them together and put them together as a playlist on YouTube. First thing YouTube did, also played the video at the end, Roddy Piper on a Nitro coming out. I didn't make the connection that it was the same time, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that all fits together now. And honestly, my reaction to it was like, oh, not this shit. I turned it off. That's usually my reaction to seeing it, Roddy Piper. Yes. So maybe the truth actually is, because I'm ready to vehemently disagree with you and tell you how great WCW was during this period. You know, it wasn't about the main events. It wasn't about Hogan and Piper. It was about the cruiserweights on the undercard, mate. It was Nash and Hall being cool. It was all that other stuff that was going on. That was what made WCW cool. But yeah, like that would turn the channel for me literally today in the year 2025. So subconsciously, maybe that was happening at the time as well. And yeah, like we talked about and like we got obviously got a lot of support. I also got some pelters for it as well. Like, I've got to defend the name of the good ship WCW, but that was part of, like, you know, what a 12-year-old me probably would have been feeling at the time, that, like, yeah, these are the cool current new stars that are coming up, and there's the old men that, like, you know, feel like they're from 50 years ago when it's actually in reality 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it is at that point. But as we often talked about, that might as well be several decades. So it's a hell of a juxtaposition.
Yeah, I should point out, a lot of people were praising the fact that I attempted to argue it, even if they weren't praising the actual argument itself. I need to be fair on that one. But like my big sort of, I guess, focus point for the last housekeeping and then Buried Alive in Your House is Jim Ross, and it's where we start with Jim Ross. He has really been sort of so much about the like what he's a bit of a shit stirrer, truthfully, around this time. But ultimately, it's because of his how he's basically kind of like got one over on Vince McMahon, that he's the one that's been able to bring Bret back to WWF. And we're going to start with the Raw after Buried Alive. You'll remember on our last podcast, a lot of that show was very clearly suddenly a Monday Night Wars era pay-per-view, because they were promoting a lot of the stuff that was going to happen on the live Raw the next night. Tune into Raw. And the big hook, obviously, was Bret Hart. And Jim Ross brings him out, and obviously in storylines, and you see this in the way that the segment plays out, Jim Ross knows the answers, but Vince McMahon doesn't. And Ross feels like he scooped Bret Hart a bit. And this is now, again, I will sort of maintain that as much as Diesel kind of calling Vince a Titan suit, it was Jim Ross that teased out that Vince was the boss. And we get a bit more of that here because Vince at the desk is like performing that he's quite stressed and he doesn't know what Bret's going to say. And Bret is playing like the sort of, what was the basketball thing years ago when there was a player that was like, he did his own video, like, what should I do? What should I do? I can't remember who it was, but basically Bret's playing the elite athlete that's got all the suitors. Yeah. He even refers to himself as the prettiest girl at the dance. And like how sort of everybody's out for Bret and where's the signature going to go? And they like, I think all sort of cynicism aside, because we're still talking about an IWC that was actually an IWC, and we're still talking about an Observer and a Torch audience that was relatively small. I think this was a smart way to play this segment. Like if you're tuning into Raw and you're willing to see Bret Hart, the ultimate professional, if he was going to leave, this would be how he would choose to go. He comes out and again, like he's in his street clothes and he's got his John Lennon circular glasses on rather than his gimmick glasses. So it's almost like, oh, hang on, this is Bret Sergeant Hart. This is not the Hitman. What are we doing here, you know? And he, again, typical professional Bret, he says, I spoke with a rival wrestling organization and I just want to say they made me a great offer. They dealt with me with integrity. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. That gets a few boos because at this point we're so used to WCW always being buried, and Bret won't do that. He won't cross that line. He's a class act. He says, when it comes to like the prospect of me leaving, I'm not greedy for money. I'm greedy for respect. And there's a big pop. The camera goes back to Vince, who looks really nervous. It then goes to the locker room, and there's a bit of history in that locker room, Benno, because Steve Austin is front of the monitor, but who else is in shot? The Rock. The first time that Austin and The Rock are on telly together ever is in a Bret Hart promo in 1996. Head clean off, brains everywhere.
I remember. I actually remember that as like one of the first times I saw The Rock, because this is before Survivor Series, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I remember. Obviously, they've been building up like him debuting, but he's in the heel locker room too, isn't he? Which is weird. It's almost like he's making up the numbers. He's just a body because people don't fully know who he is at this point. But I remember it standing out as a kid, and I remember like when we got closer to the Survivor Series, going like, "That's that guy who stood and shot like behind Pillman and behind Austin." And it's him. It's The Rock. There he is. Yeah, the big one. Yeah, he looks gigantic. To be fair, yeah. At that point, he'd been eating his vitamins.
Yeah. So yeah, the tension has risen. The tension has risen, and Bret then gives. Yes, big sort of moment of wave of relief. It washes over the audience, all that sort of stuff. And of course, that's when it cuts to the back. And like you see, sort of like the tension start to build. Austin, like, if you like polite claps, we'll go back to that shot in a second. Bret says, right, on to business. Shawn Michaels beat me fair and square. I wasn't happy about it, but I knew what I was doing when I was getting back into the ring after the 60 minutes had expired. But I'm not a sore loser, and I'm not making excuses.
It might look like that, but I'm not.
But Shawn Michaels, the boy toy, there's just something about you that really bugs me. You know, you might be a little bit younger, you might be a little bit more popular. You know, there's some people that might even think he's a little bit cuter than I am. There's going to be more on this as we go along. Shawn's done a great job as champion, pat in the head. Great job as champion, but he'll never be as tough as me. He'll never be as smart as me. And at this point, can you hear Vince McMahon already turning on Bret? No, that Bret's like signed his deal. He's like, yeah, don't turn on my Shawn Michaels. Don't you dare come for my Shawn. Like a sort of,
he's giving it the big Vince laugh, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's like,
not sure what I think about that. Yeah. So Bret said all this about Shawn, and he knows what he's doing. He says, so I'm here today to accept the challenge of the best wrestler in the World Wrestling Federation today. And then you're like, oh my God, that's shots fired. And then he says, and in the Survivor Series, because it's Bret, of course he does, I will face Stone Cold Steve Austin. Huge pop in the building. It cuts to the monitor, and Brian Pillman is the front cheerleader. He's like, yes, we got the match. Steve Austin just gives him a death stare. Back to the ring, Bret with the immortal line. Madison Square Garden, Austin. It's not a church, but it's holy ground for the Hitman. Steve Austin, Stone Cold. We'll see who kicks whose ass. He said that the AWS, big pop in the building for Bret getting sweary like Steve. He says, I've got, it gets a bit like earnest and like quite serious here. Bret like manages the pivot. He says, I've got incredible fans all over the world, and being a role model is something I take seriously. The one thing missing in the WWF over the last 6 months is me. Big cheer, big crowd. Vince gives him the big laugh. He says, I want to tell you guys about a little boy in Canada who was really ill, and he wasn't looking good. And then I went to see him at his bedside, and he said, if you can just stick at this, I'll come out of retirement, I promise you. And he said, and the kid, he did rally for a bit, but then sadly, he lost that battle, and he did pass away. And that little boy was his nephew. And you're like, oh my God, Bret, mate. From that day, I promised I would come back. I promise that I'll still be a hero. I can't dance. I can't pose too well for girly books, but I am the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And I'm back. Benno, man. Like, this is the first one. I'm getting the goosebumps. Just, oh my God. He's back. Shawn Michaels is on notice. He's just said that Steve Austin's the best wrestler right in front of the World Wrestling Federation champion. Vince has already got buyer's remorse. Oh my God.
There's so many layers to this, because like I've heard like a little birdie has told me that the Retro Boys maybe feel like we go in on Bret on this podcast, which I don't feel we do. I feel like we're very fair. If anything, as has been outlined, as much as you love Shawn, I think you maybe love Bret that little bit more. But let me prove the Retro Boys right and go, this fucking cunt, like, what is he doing? Like, he's just like, I know obviously eventually the plan is to go back to Bret and Shawn, but like, he undercuts Shawn so much in this segment. I don't know, like, people like the Retro Boys will be watching this back going, good, he deserves it, the cunt, and enjoying like the little lines in there that are thrown in, but like, Jesus Christ, like, I'm not saying this is the reason Shawn gets booed in Survivor Series. There are many other factors that led to that, and like, no matter how I felt as a 12-year-old, you can understand kind of the way the direction goes with Shawn here, but he doesn't help the situation at all. It's all of it. Like, say, the Gaily Bags line that's in there, same thing, caught me, the thing about like Steve Austin being the best wrestler in WWE, which is like, from a kayfabe point of view, makes no sense. Why would Bret Hart, the babyface, think this? From a non-kayfabe point of view, actually, it's kind of like, oh, I guess Bret was watching Stunning Steve Austin in WCW in the early 90s, and he's got his finger on the pulse, and I guess he's right at the end of it all, that it's there, but it's so kind of out of character too, that it's just like, oh, like there's so much here coming up, and it's like, you said there about like the line about like him being a sore loser. And he tries to paint it like, you know, it might look like that, you know, the way I dealt it, but you know, Shawn beat me fair and square. But you can just see in his eyes, he doesn't believe it. Like, and he knows by saying that, because he gets that reaction from the live crowd. The live crowd are going to go, no way, you didn't lose fair, Bret. No, we all know that wasn't right. What happened to you when you went to overtime in the Iron Man match? Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows, even down, like you say, the you know, the remark about how, you know, Shawn might like be better looking than me. Like, he knows what he's doing by that, because he knows like people in the crowd go, no, you're pretty good looking, Bret. And to be fair, you know, grey t-shirt, blue jeans look. He looked quite fresh here. He did well. He looked rested from his time off from WWF, and the crowd reacting, oh no, you're great. So they're probably all going, we would actually like to see it in a girly mag there, Bret. It's like it's proper. Like, this is the most Hogan Bret has been. Maybe that's a controversial take. Maybe we're gonna get clangers for it, but it's proper. Like, it's Hogan. Like, you know, puts Warrior over at WrestleMania 6, and he's, you know, making sure that the camera's on him, making sure it's sad Hulk Hogan you look at that. Kind of, yeah, that's what Bret's doing, you know. Shawn's the world champion, Shawn's the top babyface, but like, he's making it very clear what his gripes are, and making himself like the sympathetic figure here, when, like I say, a program with Shawn is just a fanciful idea at this point. Like, it's, maybe we'll get back there, maybe we'll end up there, but similar to kind of half of the motivation of him taking this time off, he's letting Shawn sink, isn't he? And he's kind of trying to hold his head underwater while he's doing it with these Jedi mind tricks.
I'll try not to inadvertently spoil like another promo on this podcast, and indeed an infamous one that would take place the next summer. And you never want to justify people's bad behavior if they're a badly behaved person. And Shawn Michaels was a badly behaved person. Massive. But let's just say the ripple effect of Bret really hammering how much he considered himself a role model after burying Shawn Michaels. Yeah. How much on this podcast, and then the following year, like, how much would that come back to sort of haunt him? That, like, I think of every line in this promo where Shawn Michaels is backstage kicking a locker or something, like, it was the role model one that went in, and him at his most spiteful was like, one of these fucking days, pal, one of these days. And like, we're going to get to it as we go along here. But like, the big one in 1997, you could argue the seed was planted here, I would say. He's like, I'll write that one down, mate. You know, the little sort of, that those type of people that kind of hold those nasty, spiteful little grudges. It goes in there, doesn't it? You know,
because that's the thing as well from a kayfabe point of view. Like, what about Shawn Michaels isn't a role model? He dances and he was in a girly magazine, I guess. So nice and progressive, Bret. But outside of that, like, he's got his old man Hans Moment in his corner that he's looking after, his little old man. He's got like the baby faces on his side. He is literally pure and good on television. Like, we know obviously Shawn's a dick, and the Sheets know Shawn's a dick, and maybe that's what it is. It's trying to appeal to that audience in this like early way in 1996. But like, yeah, he's basically just saying what the real, to quote the Retro Boys, Bret Sergeant Hart thinks about Shawn Michaels, and that this is one of the first. I can't think of Shawn taking any pot shots like this at Bret, even in the build to WrestleMania 12. Like, I think it's got to be argued that it's Bret starting the proper war here, or at least the war that is to come.
Can you, just before we move on, like, this feels relevant to that Bret promo and some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about with Bret over the next several months. Obviously, by the following year, when he's documenting, like, basically, Dave Meltzer serves as his, like, documentarian of Montreal, doesn't he? Those observers are obviously direct from Bret, like, the level of detail and the level of information. It's at that point where, like, Bret doesn't hold any of that animosity towards Dave anymore. You wonder if some of that relationship might have sprouted in the summer of 1996, when Bret was being courted by both companies. If there was ever a time where building a bond with the most preeminent wrestling journalists would have actually benefited Bret, it would have been that summer, wouldn't it? Because he would have been leveraging his value and, like, having that decision time and maybe finding out little whispers about what Shawn might be up to or how business is or things like that. It doesn't hurt to have, like, someone like Meltzer on your speed dial if you're Bret Hart in 1996, does it?
No, not at all. Like, and that's like the game a lot of them like played during this period. It would either be Meltzer or it'd be Keller. I feel like people still do that to this day. It's kind of Sean Ross Sapp now, isn't it? People will play that game with, but absolutely, that game was definitely being played, and that's probably part of it as well. It's probably part of the needle that's going on behind the scenes here with Bret and Shawn. But again, I'm sure the Bret fans are loving this, but like for me, it's kind of like, yes, it's compelling stuff. Yes, we absolutely love the goss and we love all that stuff. You can't help but look at it and think it's undercutting what is a babyface Shawn Michaels at this point, and it only really serves Bret.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're a Bret guy, which I know you are, you'll be watching this with the wry smile that Bret cuts to camera when he's throwing these lines in.
Well, from that shoot, we go to a work, and maybe that's the explanation about like why the winner of this was the guy that was working all along. Stone Cold Steve Austin is set to be interviewed by Brian Pillman on the Superstars immediately following the Raw that we've just seen, where obviously the clip airs again of Brian Pillman maybe celebrating a bit too vigorously that Bret the Hitman Hart will be returning at the Survivor Series. Pillman is still very happy to have Austin. He calls him the king of the ring winner. He's excited to have him out for an interview. Jim Ross is at this point kind of baby-facing Pillman. He's like saying, I'm excited for when the loose cannon can return, like he's still walking with that cane, but we're hopeful for his return sooner rather than later. Pillman bigs up the Survivor Series, and he puts over Bret and he says, look, I'm just excited to see you two go at it at the Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden. And Austin just gets right in his face. Listen to me, you little crippled freak. Everybody knows that when we were riding together, I carried that team. He's right in Pillman's face at this point, kind of out of nowhere. He says, and like, all I want to say is that at the Survivor Series, I'm going to whip the Hitman's ass. And like, Pillman sort of takes the cue and kind of just steps back and says, well, yeah, thanks very much, Steve. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be you versus the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever. And before he can even finish, Austin has clipped the knee. The dreaded shot blockers we've talked about, the most lethal move in all of pro wrestling, and he is just going for him. He's targeting the knee, he's targeting the ankle. He steals Brian Pillman's cane and he smashes that bastard across the leg. It is an unbelievable sound and visual as the cane snaps in half. The noise is incredible. Half of it goes flying off. And then we get it. The original Pillmanizing, as done onto Brian Pillman, obviously, where it got its name, of the ankle. Jim Ross, as he jumps on that. He does it off the second rope at first, and then he stomps on it again. And Jim Ross is amazing on the call. Made me kind of miss Jim Ross in AEW a little bit, if you can believe that. He was just like, oh my God, this is horrendous. You can hear the bone snapping. Gerald Briscoe arrives and takes the greatest bump in the history of the business. He runs in his full suit. He was, to be fair, he was probably only in his mid-30s at that point, but he runs in and Austin just launches him straight out between the top and middle rope. He takes like a diving flat back to the floor, as good as any dive you'd see on Dynamite. It was incredible. Bob Holly and Alex the Pug Porto come out. Not that they can do anything, but there's about 15 other officials, so they're just the muscle to back up the officials, as Austin finally says, all right, fine. Jim Ross gets a great line in. He says, Pillman's his friend. If Austin will do this to Pillman, what's he going to do to Bret Hart? And you think, because that's the angle that you've seen over and over again on Superstars, that's the angle you've seen in the video package, that this is going to be the end of it. But no, that episode of Superstars gives you what ultimately, I would argue, becomes a road test for one of the greatest Monday Night Raw storylines ever. We'll recap that when we get to Housekeeping in April 1997, because right now we're back at the ambulance when Brian Pillman is getting loaded in. And then all of a sudden, the ambulance can't get away because Austin has gone to pull his car in front of the ambulance and block it from leaving. He gets out the car, slams his door, goes over the ambulance where the medics are like, let us leave. We need to get him to hospital. Move your car. And Austin's like, why don't you move my car? And they're like, give me the keys. He says, you want the keys? And he just launches the keys down at the back of the car park. Just gets in the face of the ambulance. Says, just basically sort of says, you deal with it. You sort of, you take care of that. And again, like Jim Ross is just like hammering the point. Bret Hart's return has driven everybody insane. He's trying to suggest that this is proper storytelling. An inciting incident has taken the equilibrium of the world wrestling. It's taken the equilibrium of Steve Austin's brain and it's sent into haywire. And then they finally, obviously, after Steve Austin's been carted out the building, somebody is sent to go and find the keys, and they're finally able to move the cart and get Pillman to hospital about an hour after he needed serious medical attention. This is a white hot piece of business to just drop on Saturday morning Superstars, isn't it?
This is the thing, I've so many takes. Firstly, on the keys, it doesn't really feel like just a minor inconvenience. You can't throw them that far. I feel like you can find them. It's not a big deal. But it does, my brain fast forwarded to 1997 and like the versions of this angle that you'd see where it's Austin getting in the ambulance and continuing the beatdown. This feels like, because it's 1996, maybe they've gone, well, that'd be too far. Clearly, he wouldn't do that. But he'll do all of the other stuff instead. He'll try and delay the ambulance going and he'll be cruel. And the commentary sells just that as like the worst thing in the world. Like, it's perfect, isn't it, with Jim Ross on here on commentary, because they're both like, you know, Jim Ross says it, I'm a fan of Steve Austin, but like, this is just too far, this is nonsense. And Perfect kind of says the same thing. They do that great serious announcer job of selling it, and it does all feel real, and it does all feel like, for me, and this is kind of part of the point of this podcast, is me kind of going, you know, my memories of 1996 versus, you know, your educated view of rewatching this period, like a lot, like over the years. For me, like, I don't remember seeing a lot of this. I feel like the version of Superstars we got in the UK must have cut a lot of this, because even watching it today, it's like, you know, the cripple line that Austin throws in there, and like the degree of violence that comes with the Pillmanizer, and like, at least that I feel like got freeze framed when it got replayed at times over the UK broadcast a lot. And there was a lot of that happening in 1996 because we weren't ready to get into the Attitude Era over here. So I didn't feel like I'd seen all of this like in full. Like, I'd heard tale of it, and obviously seen the angle we're going to talk about in a minute a million times over for different podcasts. But for me, this was one of the first times I watched this right the way through, and it's just, again, it feels like something right out of 1997 or 1998, and it just feels like, even just the idea that it's a heel going after another heel, like, that's just not something they do. But what's the match to build here? There isn't really one. I mean, and obviously it doesn't really come. If anything, it lays the seeds for Pillman on the Hart Foundation side versus Austin as the white hot babyface going forward, and obviously the Cold Day in Hell show that we've got coming up as well. But like, it feels so different than anything they're doing, and that's Austin here, isn't it? It's like, and again, maybe they don't know that, maybe they don't know how, clearly they don't know how big this is, because they're doing it on Superstars, they're not doing it on Raw. It's not like the big angle to end the show, like, because it's what we keep talking about. They're experimenting in this period, and this is an experiment that works. It's just on Superstars where it's happening. There's
a nice little cute detail, because we'll review the show in full when we get to it, but the Raw where Austin attacks Bret in the ambulance, in obviously what is like a kind of more a violent version of this one here. That happens to be the Raw where Brian Pillman returns from injury. So that's a nice, cute detail. That's like probably an accident, but when they've realized they can put those two things together, that's quite a nice, oh yeah, I remember you did this once before, you bastard. I kind of kept that receipt sort of thing.
But even like some of the, maybe it was going over my head in 1996, but a lot of like the, Austin and Pillman history where Austin's like, people know, like I used to carry him in my back pocket. Again, they don't say WCW, but they're alluding to WCW. Again, I don't remember hearing or seeing that, or maybe I did see it because I'm 12. I wasn't thinking about the Hollywood Blondes and wasn't thinking about the history there. It's like, it's stuff they don't do. It's all like, I guess, pushing the envelope, isn't it?
I would say there was one sort of tease of it. And I would have to assume it overlapped, but like I remember in they made reference to it in the Raw magazine. And again, we talk about Vince Russo's growing influence and how much for a while Raw magazine was a far superior product to WWE TV. Yeah. It presented to you the WWE TV that you wanted because he really had his finger on the pulse. And I can't remember if it was either a fantasy warfare where it was Austin versus Pillman, or if it was just discussion of how they'd been partners in the past. And like, remember they had that like that face-to-face at the King of the Ring.
Right,
when Pillman's just signed and he's on the crutches, and they kind of, I remember that still image of the two of them having that
nod,
little,
isn't it?
Yeah, that knowing nod. So it's all these like little illusions without ever needing to go the whole way to outright say it. And I guess this is as close as Austin gets. And again, I've said this on, if never in this chronology, I've definitely said it on other podcasts before. Like the segment we're about to talk about, the segment. Yeah, the segment we're about to talk about where like Austin and Bret are kind of put together for the first time on Raw was something I was given to me on a tape ahead of Survivor Series when I didn't have Sky. And as an adult, the only sort of thing I can compare it to is like feeling guilt that I could sense myself being like lured away by Steve Austin, like lured away from Bret. Or just the goodies in general. Yeah, like we'll get into it now. So so obviously the kind of the company is dealing with the ramifications of Bret's return and then Austin's reaction to Bret's return. And in order to try and act on that, on the 28th of October edition of Raw, they do a face-to-face between the two. And the location of each man is important because Bret's camera is being set up in his living room while Steve Austin has been dragged to the studio in Stamford, Connecticut, your old haunt. And already Austin is pissed off. He's like, hang on. You go to Bret's house and then he gets cut off because Vince says, oh, by the way, next week on Raw, we're going to be going to Brian Pillman's house in suburban Cincinnati where he's recovering from his injury. And Austin's like, so you're going to Bret's house for his interview and you're going to Brian's house for his interview and you didn't come to Victoria, Texas. So he's fuming. He's pissed off. He feels like the system's working against him.
Why can't I work from home? And, that was my attitude in 2020.
That was it, yeah. He's just like, I could at least get 3 and 2, couldn't I? He's raging. So they're already like off on the back foot with Austin. He's just absolutely simmering. He's a boiling pot of rage. And he says like, he's just at this point a man who is aggravated with his enemies being alive. He sort of justifies the attack. He says it was, look, like I'm losing my interview time just so Brian Pillman can talk about Bret Hart. Listen here, Vince, when you get jerked around as long as I have, you've got to do what you've got to do. And then Vince says, like, but what a kind of man are you? And Austin drops his first ever DTA. He says, I guess Pillman didn't listen to DTA. Don't trust anybody. You thought I was your friend, Brian, but I had the strings right here. So he kind of alludes to the fact that even the mention of Pillman bringing up Bret on TV was giving Austin what he wanted, which was luring Bret back into the fold. And it's all been Austin's plan to sort of like finally get this opportunity. It's quite sort of, it's a detail that I forget, is that Steve Austin here is presented as a guy, an athlete that has had like doors slammed in his face and he's not going to let that happen anymore. And he doesn't have to say this, but you even sense like, if he wanted to, he could have said, I won that King of the Ring and you put me on the SummerSlam pre-show against Yokozuna. Like, if you wanted to, you could have made that part of the story because he keeps talking about, like, it's my opportunity now. It's Stone Cold's time. Pillman, with your stupid, raspy voice, shut up and I'll be the one that does the talking. He says, Gorilla Monsoon's a puppet. Everybody knows that you're the boss, Vince. Why don't you do something if you don't like me saying all these things? Why don't you do something about it? You won't because you're a greedy, selfish promoter, and Bret Hart versus Steve Austin is going to make your wallet fat. Jerry Lawler is pissing himself on commentary, and I am as well. Steve Austin says, I can't wait to make money fighting Bret, and I bet you can't wait to make money off it, Vince. Like, I'd I'm going to make a massive payday for this, but believe me, I will kick Bret Hart's ass for free. Before we get to picture-in-picture and Bret Hart arriving for this interview, like, already what you make of Studio Steve just melting the screen with this one?
Just chewing scenery, isn't he? Exactly that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll talk about Bret turning up with his feet out and his kids on his lap. What a juxtaposition between the two characters that is. And then Sonny weirdly interrupting the segment. Yeah. That was a very weird way of doing it. But again, another thing I did not remember. Like that again. Feel like I might have seen like some of the moments of this, but not put it together. Like we keep documenting. Like we should keep a track record of the amount of like mentions that are made to Vince McMahon running the WWF, and like how many months of people saying that it took for 12-year-old Benno to go, oh, he runs it right. I get it now. Like just like, literally, this is Austin, like you said there, point blank to the camera saying it, and like Vince being stuck for words, like we said with like the Livewire segment last time, and it just being out there and it being right there. But Austin's real, isn't he? That's what it feels like. It feels like Austin he's not a character like anybody else on there, and he's just, every part of it. Like, he hasn't quite put it together either. I feel like still at this point, there's little moments where like he sells a bit of, maybe not fear, but it's a bit comedic the way he is when he knows that Bret's going to come on, and he hasn't quite, you could imagine the real life Steve Austin going home and watching these segments back and going, okay, I'll stop that little bit where I look like I smiled a little bit. I'll drop that little bit where it looked like I almost made Bret laugh, or I'll drop that little bit where I was being a bit too cartoonish as a heel, and he's clearly perfecting it here. And it's like, it's watching like one of the all-time great character actors pull all this stuff together. And then obviously 20 years later, John Moxley would watch it and copy his homework, and I guess he'd copy half Austin's homework and half Pillman's homework. I reckon he watched that Austin and Pillman segment a million times over and just took bits from each. But like, this is literally Austin creating a character the likes of which we've never seen before on TV, and you're seeing him doing it's exhilarating to see.
There's a line in a minute we'll get to that I think sums that up, because we do come back to them going picture in picture, and Austin, as you say, is just going a mile a minute. As you say, Bret in his flip-flops, his kids are in the shot with him at one point. Like, Austin...
Did he not know camera was coming in? Like, the technology thing, by the way, the fact that they can hear each other. Like, StreamYard didn't exist. Zoom didn't exist in 1996. Like, fair play. They're on their arse. They're fed in 1996, and you've got some good production.
They never skimp on production, do they? That's like a consistent. They've got no water coolers in the building anymore, but they'll still have the best production this side of like any wrestling show you'll see in the 90s. You make a point, I don't know if this was Freudian, but the fact it cuts to Sonny of all people in the building coming out midway through, like Bret. It's the first time I did clock. It's the first time Bret calls Austin a hyena. Get used to that. But like Austin, like, can't get his words out fast enough, and then he's aware he's being cut off, and his just patience is like razor thin at this point. He's been dragged to Stamford into the studio. Bret's in the comfort of his own home. It's a really nice juxtaposition, and it's that important like factor of like, even when Vince McMahon and the WWF and Steve Austin himself thought that this character's never going to be a babyface, it's a heel, it's a heel, it's a heel. A good heel should have a slither of justification, and Austin's got it, because why is he not being given the star treatment from his home in Victoria, Texas? He's right. So anyway, we finally get to the interview. We finally get to the face-to-face. Bret's trying to explain why he took the time off. It was nothing to do with Shawn Michaels chasing him out or whatever. Austin is just pulling faces just sneering every time Bret says anything. He just says, you're afraid, Bret. You're afraid I'm going to kick your ass. And Bret's like, he's like the old gunslinger. He's like, that's interesting. Like, we'll see. I don't think you can kick my ass, but we'll see. We'll see. Austin is just absolutely boiling at this point. Bret says, you might be the best. I said you were the best. You're the best right now until Survivor Series, when I'll win. And Austin just says, shut up, Bret. Win, lose, or draw. It's not over. I'm always going to be on your ass. I'm the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. You're done. You're absolutely done. And Bret tries to say, look, what's this? What do you want out of me, Vince? Like, I'm here to like clean up the WWF from people like Steve Austin. And then Austin's about to get his comeback in, and Vince has to wrap them up because they're out of time. And Austin just fucking loses it. Bret like nods, and he's taken off the camera. The camera's suddenly full on Austin. And like Austin stopped even talking to Vince. There's a cameraman behind the scenes, and Austin's like, you can stop counting me down, son. And he just walks through the camera. He breaks the fourth wall. Like 1996, your head's blown clean off, man. Walks through the fourth wall, grabs the production staffer by the shirt, throws him into a ladder that's like somewhere else off camera, smashes up the studio, throws a monitor on the floor, bullies a security guard, and you can hear him screaming at the security guard, "What are you going to do? Vince McMahon wouldn't dare let anything happen to me." We see him getting in the face of another security guard. Raw goes off the air with Vince promoting next week's episode, like hurriedly by saying, "Next week, Raw, 1 hour earlier," which was, of course, to compete with Nitro. 1 hour earlier, we're going to be at Brian Pillman's home. And then you're just seeing Austin get into the front door of the studios where police have arrived. The flashing lights, the police are there greeting the rattlesnake as Raw goes off the air. And they've given you the hard sell for them being in Brian Pillman's house next week. Just like, what has happened to the WWF?
It's brilliant because it's consistent with the Austin character, and like I say, he's not just doing it when the camera's on or for the perfect promo. He's just living and breathing this character. But all I think watching it is like what you said before, like that guilt of a kid going, "Oh, I think I like him. He's a baddie, but I like him." But like I could imagine like myself even like watching this back or like seeing, the young men in the audience who are going to cheer Steve Austin later on and make him like make a star there, just like loving it. And it's just like an almost like unintended byproduct of it. But like, he's the coolest man. You kind of want to see like somebody do this and go off the rails. It's kind of cool to see him batter these production hands and stuff like that. And they're clearly doing it to make Austin seem unhinged and, turn really that Bret promo that was about Shawn, that probably should have been more about Steve, about him being the moral upstanding one, and Shawn not being the great role model. Really, that should be about Steve Austin. He's not a great role model. Yeah. Look what he's doing to these poor production hands. Look at him. He's even the swearing, comes up like Austin's made up because he gets Bret to say a naughty word. Like it's like he's all of like the opposite things to Bret Hart. And I think even though we're pushing the envelope here, and even though we're on the cusp of them finding it, I think they're still trying to do it for heel heat, not realizing that like there's people like us at home punching there, aren't they? Want to see this, and yeah, they'll obviously slowly figure out that was the secret sauce.
It's again, like I love so much, like, and it's a shame because ultimately what you are seeing is a template for the things to come. But as with every sort of template, wrestling kind of can't help itself. And it's like a horror movie monster that reveals itself and is suddenly not as scary to you. Like, I was desperate for 10 more seconds of Steve Austin greeting the police, whereas it would get to the point by 1999, 2000, those bits always felt like they went on too long. Like, you're seeing people interact, like you're just like, "Oh, I get it now. Yeah, someone's been arrested or someone's like, there's this crazy scene that's
the ambulance angle, the restraint to just throw the keys rather than, oh, now he's going to batter him and he's going to drive the ambulance off a boat or something like that. That's what Austin would. By the time you get to 2001, you would have got a crane and lifted the ambulance up and then dropped it down again. Do you know what I mean? It's like
you're so right.
Still at that point.
You're so right. In 1996, he throws keys in a car park. In 1997, he throws a belt off a bridge in a lake. Like, everything just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. I suppose one of these days, in another season, we might get to that. But it is time, Benno, to travel to beautiful suburban Cincinnati and the, quite frankly, gorgeous home of Brian Pillman. This Raw, Walton, for context, I should point out. Yeah, Walton. I should point out the Raw is I think the third or fourth week of the taping cycle. So the Raw in a building is taped, but all the cuts to the Pillman home are live, and that becomes important later on. So this is the first Raw where they've moved. USA have given WWF the license to start an hour early to try and compete, because obviously Nitro's first hour was basically revealing the results and saying, right, don't flip over to Raw. You've got 2 hours of Nitro. You don't even need to go to USA. So they're like, right, at least go head to head with the first hour instead of the second. That's the least we can do. And at least let's start at 7:57 instead of 8 o'clock. And then we'll get the 3-minute jump. So it's the first time that the USA Network has realized kind of what's going on, and they need to see if they can help WWF in some way. Maybe give them like a competitive advantage that they've lost over the past sort of 6 months to a year. So obviously WWE come in hot with a big angle because the wrestling itself is taped. And the big angle is that Steve Austin has promised to go to Brian Pillman's home. The establishing shot, I know we take the piss, the Fair is cinema, whatever. The establishing shot, to me, is so cinematic that Pillman's house looks like a film set. Pillman has got his leg up on a cushion. Melanie Pillman, the doting wife, stood behind him looking terrified. Kevin Kelly has never looked more like an out-of-his-depth news reporter rather than like a wrestling journalist in his life. This feels like it is waiting to become a crime scene. Pillman says, like, Kevin, don't talk to me about my prognosis. I'll be back in 1997. We know what this is about. Steve Austin has crossed the line, but there's new rules now, son. And you're like, what's he talking about there? Kevin Kelly says, well, like, what do you think about Austin? He's like promised to come to your house. Vince McMahon on commentary says, we think Steve's circling the neighborhood. And then Brian Pillman in a shot that people can see in their mind's eye as I describe it, but is no less amazing 30 years later. Well, Kevin, when Austin 316 meets Pillman 9mm Glock and he pulls a gun as we go at the ads, the visual, you can all visualize it, of Brian Pillman's wide eyes holding the gun. I mean, like, we can talk about the quality of this when the segment's wrapped, but at this point, this is the single most insane frame of WWF television ever, probably.
And forget everything I said before about restraint. This is very much on the opposite end of it, of like, I don't know how I feel about it as well, because it's like, they're very clearly, like, it's shock TV, isn't it? They're very clearly just, at this point, willing to do anything, like you say, playing the games with the USA Network, and just, you know, desperately trying to stop that slide. With people,
because you're not going to turn over, are you? You are never turning over. Never.
It's like, it is just literally the most wild thing out. Because again, this is another one that I'm 100% certain didn't air over in the UK, and we didn't get to see the full footage of it. But it is literally, it's like, what's the most extreme thing you could do? Fucking pull a gun out, and like, it is. This is, I'd say the other one works. This is one where I'm not 100% it works. I think it's too far in that direction, and it's maybe a little bit cartoony, but boy, does it grab your attention, and boy, is it shocking. Even now, watching it back, and there is like that, you know, I'm sure you're going to get into it, like that element of danger that kind of feels like it fills the room. Not actually, weirdly, and this probably should have been telling, it's not so much the gun that brings the element of danger, it's just Steve Austin being Steve Austin that brings the element of danger. But there's that part of it that I think if you could bottle it, is the positive of the segment, and then there's the shock elements of the segment. It's just very clearly a company willing to put anything on TV that's going to grab, but my God, does it grab?
We come back from the break, and Steve Austin has arrived. Kevin Kelly is sounding absolutely petrified, and Austin is beating the fucking shit out of Brian Pillman's jobber friends that have arrived. Like, they're fighting by a kiddie pool. He slams one of the guys' heads in a car door. Steve Austin, by the way, is wearing that 1996 Pillman shirt. You know, I'm pretty sure it's the one that says, I don't call 911. You know,
right.
So he's wearing the Pillman shirt. So it's a bit of foreshadowing there. He mauls these guys. He launches like those kids' bikes at one of the guys' heads. The shirts are all ripped. Like, I've held those bikes before. Like, they've got little sharp bits sticking out of them when you're building them for the kids at Christmas. And he just launches it at this guy. It's a black highway, the garden. Oh, it's a total war zone. Bruises the next day from that. And he walks around to the front of the house, and the way they shoot it really is like a horror movie moment. He's trying the door. He's trying every window. He sort of disappears round the back. And at this point, the camera goes back into the living room, and Kevin Kelly is like, he's in real trouble. He's in over his head. Pillman's just waiting, stationed with the gun at this point. And then again, the noise is better than the visual. You hear appropriately glass smashing, and Steve Austin has smashed the window frame of the back entrance to the Pillman household. Melanie Pillman starts screaming. Pillman points the gun, and then, oh no, the power goes out. Benno, we've lost the power. Can you believe it? The key moment, the camera feed in Suburban Cincinnati has cut out. We go back. Again, it cuts to a Raw. There's a friggin' Mark Mero match or something. Nobody could possibly give a shit. We finally get back to the house, and then the commentators, Vince and Jerry, are panicking. They're like, did anybody fire a shot? And then Kevin Kelly's like, no. We heard explosions. They don't want to say a shot anymore. They've clearly been allowed like 3, and they can't say a shot, and they can't say a gun anymore.
USA Network's been on the phone.
Yeah, and then Kevin Kelly's delivery is amazing here. He goes, oh my God, he's back. And you can hear Austin getting in the house again. Austin's just like surrounded by police. I don't know, local security, God knows what. Pillman on his one leg, hobbling to his feet. He's pointing the gun. You can hear Austin going, shoot me, shoot me. And Pillman loud, live on mic says, I'll kill that fucking guy. Melanie's screaming in the background. Kevin Kelly's screaming for his life. Brian's got the crazy eyes. Call the police. Raw goes off the air. I'm with you. It's a line too far, I think, immediately out of context, because like Steve Austin is not afraid of getting shot to death. He's so desperate. Like, in terms of the lengths that character will go to, that is pretty wild. But again, like, I'm talking about that, watching it many times years later, remembering it being inducted in the WrestleCrap archives, kind of laughing at how sort of elements of it are so cheesy.
Yeah.
But as a piece of in-context footage, it's remarkable 1996 wrestling television, isn't it?
Exactly that. Like, I'm glad it doesn't all land, and some of it is as ridiculous as if people haven't seen it, of course you should go watch it. But a lot of it's as ridiculous as it sounds there. But I'm so glad they're trying it. It's so compelling to watch them try it, isn't it? And like, there's again, like, the gun, bit of a gimmick. Like you say, the stuff with the police, bit of a gimmick. But like the crux of it, there's something about that, isn't it? Like Austin being the man breaking into your house. Like somebody breaking into your house is actually the most terrifying thing, isn't it? That's one of the scariest things in the world. If someone started banging on that window, I'd fucking shit myself. And like, there's something about that just, there's like a thrill to it, isn't it? There's a fucking danger to it. And it's so Steve Austin. I think if they just did that without all the other stuff, without the gun, without the prop, without the, the sports entertaining like elements of it that make it a bit wacky and actually undercut the seriousness of it, because the edge that is there from pure Steve Austin, from pure, like you say, Melanie Pillman screaming, from pure Kevin Kelly saying get the cops, all of that stuff would actually work on its own. It's just, they go those couple of steps too far, but I applaud the effort. I'm glad it exists. It's like how much wrestling discourse did it create at the time, since, like you say, WrestleCrap. Like, it is such a great thing that happened, even if it doesn't all, go the way it should.
And Home Invasions, again, to talk about copy of a copy of a copy. Like, we're a load of shit compared to this one, weren't they? Like, no, like they would try this or similar over and over again, and you really only get one.
DNA as well, they did a few.
You only ever really get one proper go at it, and these were the right. I'll say this for all the. I agree with you about the gun, and I agree about large portions of it. But like, these two were the right men at the right time. They're the bits that make it credible. Like you say, Steve Austin and Brian Pillman are what is credible about this.
They're doing a B movie, they're doing a crap film, but they're great actors and they're pulling it off. Like, it's that film you watch where you go, the film was a bit crap, but that main performance carried the whole thing. The main performance of them too. And again, we shouldn't let it get undercut. Like, what an interesting creative. Like, again, we've just been talking about fucking, the real Jesse James and stuff like that, like in this WWF in 1996. Like, that's the type of stuff we're talking about. And here, even just the idea of Austin and Bret are feuding. So really, Austin and Bret should really be focusing on each other. But like, to give Austin this little side project that obviously links in quite well with with Pillman as well. But like, it's a heel versus heel feud. Like, to do that on top of setting up the Bret and Austin thing is like, it's inspired, isn't it? It's just a really amazing, interesting secondary thing for Austin to do that they wouldn't have done 6 months ago, that they wouldn't have a character doing 6 months ago. It's like, it's completely fresh, completely new, even if it doesn't all work.
It is. It's like, I find as a wrestling fan that when companies hit this kind of stride, it's thrilling to be knowing that it's happening. Like I say, to me, this like overlaps with Brian Pillman, it overlaps with Jim Ross. Like, a lot of these things, there's like a cause and effect that have led us to the point where a man can smash into another man's house. And it's not even, to your point, the man he's set to have the next pay-per-view match with, but it's all about like in-universe character building. And it's like wrestling is bollocks. And outside of our bubble, you forget sometimes how much people kind of just laugh at this stupid thing that we watch. But when you watch it with like sort of, when you feel like, even if it's not necessarily a show Bible, because they're tearing up a million rules here, but if there's a real sense that I don't know, like the creative ecosystem is firing, it's so exciting. It's so captivating to watch all the machine starting to oil back into life. I love
Prestige
that
TV
feeling.
in some ways. They've done it in the most wacky WWF way possible, but it's like, a good episode of Breaking Bad. Walter White might be meeting up with the main baddie, but he's still got to do other things in the hour and the episode. Pillman is Austin's other things, isn't he? And it's like, it's brilliant. And I'm sure we'll like sing his praises like going forward, but like, Pillman's one of those. I think people, when wrestlers die young and, don't get the run that you'd expect, people lionize them, don't they? And rightly, with good faith, I think people do that. It's just a natural reaction. every time I see Pillman here, it's just, you can't help but your brain go through those mechanisms. Oh, what could have been? Imagine if they could have revisited this in, we've talked about it on GRAPPL a lot of times when, when Austin's got no opponent in the summer of 1998 and it's like, we'll put another gimmick on Foley or I guess Kane and The Undertaker, we can do that.
Yeah.
Imagine if Pillman was there. Imagine if he could have revisited this stuff.
As Vince McMahon's loose cannon, Vince is so desperate that he's willing to do business with the loose cannon.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It'd be so. And in 1998, with that crowd and the way the audiences were at that point, and pushing the envelope there, imagine the things Pillman would have come up with. But again, I think that'll happen. We'll end up having those conversations every time we get a big Pillman angle like this because he is so compelling. He is so brilliant.
It's funny, isn't it? For a guy that, for all of that run, that 95 to 96 to 97, by the letter of the law, or I guess the number of the spreadsheet, he wasn't a draw. But he's money. Brian Pillman is money just waiting to be made, isn't he? Yeah. He's a facilitator of a lot of money getting made, Brian Pillman, even if he never quite reaches the money he should make himself.
Agent of chaos, ain't he? You just throw him in the mix and he shuffles enough of the pieces around that the money comes, doesn't it, from maybe somewhere else? Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned B-movies and prestige TV because the next segment we're about to review should have won Emmys and Oscars. It's a vignette that the company produced for Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. The full, I guess, behind the scenes version of it, you can now see on the WWE Vault channel, thanks to our friends that work there, uploading a long form version where you see.
You sure
Austin
it's not us?
Austin setting up the shot and breaking the egg and all that sort of stuff. And many bits of it would be incorporated into his first Titantron video. And a lot of the, the aesthetic that made the babyface Steve Austin was filmed here, but it was filmed here to make this specific vignette. In my opinion, one of the greatest pay-per-view sales pitch vignettes the WWF ever created. Again, it sort of feels like a swipe, doesn't it? It's I noticed that the NWO are filming things in black and white. Interesting. What can we do with black and white? And it's just we're the top dogs of production. Let's try and fight back. Let's put them back into place a little bit. What can we do? And as we've talked about the Steve Austin character, a man on fire. So he's walking through what looks like an abandoned warehouse, a dangerous place, patrolled by dogs behind cages that scared the shit out of me then as much as they still do now. All of these shots are kind of at a sort of a low angle, so there's a light glimmering in the background, but it's never bright enough to light the whole area, so you can never quite make out where he is. It's just danger. There is danger in the air, and it's narrated as Steve Austin kind of patrols this area. It's narrated by the Rattlesnake himself, and I'll not do this justice, but here he goes, basically kind of summarizing his current sort of feelings. Yeah, he goes, pink tights. What the hell is that all about, Bret? This ain't no ballet class. Sunglasses, sparklers. What a load of crap. Bret, you're coming back to continue a legacy. Stone Cold's going to make your comeback a living hell. You should start begging for mercy now. I think you're completely pathetic. Best was, is, ever will be, whatever. You're looking at the best there is. Austin 316 rules. I will kick your pink and black ass all over the garden. Bret, the whole world knows you quit the WWF because you lost to Shawn Michaels, the pretty boy. The boy toy kicked your ass and sent you back to Canada. You ran away in shame. I ain't no sexy boy, Bret. When the bell rings and it's time to get down to business, I don't dance. I'm going to take 7 years of frustration and being pissed off out on your ass. Think about it like this, Bret. You can finally go home, look yourself in the mirror, and get a little peace of mind because you will know that you are indeed beaten by a real man. The glass shatters, Austin's relatively new music hits, and it just flashes up white text on a black background. Survivor Series, November 17th, full stop. Benno, the goosebumps are up on my arm, and I want to pay $50 now to watch that show all over again. Holy shit, mate.
And you say, again, I bet the nugget of this idea was, well, they're doing that over in WCW, so we can do it. But again, it shouldn't be taken as a given that it's just that Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin, like in an era where this could have easily been Justin Hawk Bradshaw, or it could have been Mo and Mabel. They could have given like an idea. You know what I mean? We're not far removed from that. We're literally still in it when we get into this next day in your house, like a lot of those wacky undercard heels. But you give something to this Austin, you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile, isn't he? He's going to run with it, and he's going to give you something that's literally 5-star, just gold. And like that's the difference between Austin and everybody else on this roster at this point.
It's again, I imagine a lot of these ones people will have either seen or seen bits of, because they're all they're individually iconic to me in their own way. But I am aware sometimes that 1996 and 1995 and the like, a lot of people wave this away as like not worth going back and reliving. I've said it. I said it on the last podcast. I'll say it now. Like, Jim Ross kicked open the doors to the Attitude Era, and for one, you have to count this. Like, for me, you have to count Steve
Maybe
Austin.
just Austin segments. Maybe just like that slice of the show, but yes.
Well, like, you kind of mentioned Bret teasing a swear word out with Bret.
Yeah.
And like talking about how he has to make it his. We kind of see how like somebody else is about to see how the wind is blowing, because I did mention at the start of this recap that it was about 4 men heading into Survivor Series, because in the background of this, a very pro wrestling build has been taking place, and it's between Shawn Michaels and Sid, and we will come back to Bret and Austin and how this all ties in. But you'll remember at Buried Alive how Sid defeated Vader and Shawn left the commentary table, and the two of them did that kind of high five they do, and they're kind of playing like a babyface version of the dudes with attitudes, where it's like, yeah, we're going to fight, but we're mates. This is going to be fine. This is going to be fine. But on Raw over the month of October and into November, Shawn and Sid have been in a mini program with Bulldog and Owen. And what's happened is the singles matches have led to a tag match. The tag match has led to the two of them clashing in the ring. And what happened with Shawn and Diesel has happened again with Shawn and Sid. Shawn has inadvertently drilled Sid with Sweet Chin Music. The two of them have clattered into each other. Bulldog and Owen have left the scene of the crime they've created. And Sid and Shawn, it's come apart at the seams because of the competitive rivalry over the WWF title and the history between the two of them that goes back to 1995 and whatnot. And we take that spat to the changing rooms on Raw, on the go home before Survivor Series, where this tag match has taken place. Sid's cut a promo where he's in the back and he says, Shawn, he's doing the loud, quiet, loud. I've tried to stay friends with you, buddy, but it's Madison Square Garden. It's the WWF title. I'm coming for you. I'm going to beat you. Kevin Kelly goes to Shawn's locker room. He's fresh off the match. He's got the towel around his waist. The hair's wet. And so he starts saying, you know what it is, Kevin, like me and Sid, we kind of always had these conflicting personalities. And then it's like a light switch goes off in Shawn Michaels. And it's like he remembers what Bret said. And he's like, right, that little fucker did that to me in his Austin one. How can I tie my Sid promo into having to go at Bret Hart? And he says, you know, like Sid comes out here and he wants me to call him the master. And then the light bulb just goes off in his head. You know what, Kevin? Yeah, the hitman wants to be a role model and a superhero. You know, everybody wants to knock the Heartbreak Kid. Everybody wants to call me chump change. Everybody calling my names has been kicked in the teeth by me. Sid, I need you to realize something. It was a mistake what I did tonight, and I still knocked you out cold on a block of ice. What are you going to do when I'm gunning for you? And believe me, with that chin that you're sporting, I can hit it from anywhere in Madison Square Garden. If I get this boot off and knock you out, you're going down, whether you or anybody else likes it. It's no longer a concern of mine who likes me. I want your respect, Sid. And if I'm going to beat out of you, I'll do it. And what's great about Steve Austin changing the landscape of the WWF is that as Shawn Michaels has just cut like the first unhinged promo of his entire title run. Better late than never, I suppose, Shawn, on the last Raw before you lose the fucking belt. Like this unhinged promo, it's Steve Austin's music that plays him out because he's ready to go to the ring in Raw. And that's just a nice little sort of happenstance moment. But here we go. Like Shawn has let Bret get under his skin and we're going to get more of this, but it's started to creep out. It's like, who are you feuding with here, lads? And I think that's why important to keep all four in the conversation, because there's Steve Austin, the worker, who's letting his star rise. There's Sid, the guy that is ultimately going to be the big disruptor in this and become the world champion. And then there's Bret and Shawn, who are desperately struggling to hide how much they fucking hate each other. And the whole thing, it's like a pan on the hob, and the whole thing is just waiting to bubble over. Shawn, out of nowhere, turning this into a work shoot. It's just gripping.
And I can't help but look, I don't think like Shawn is like eyeing like the Bret and Steve stuff and seeing like the great television they're doing, going, oh, and I'm working with this big looking someone going, Shawn, it was your idea, mate. You didn't want to work with Vader, so we put you with Sid. Like, that was your fault. But like, you can tell he just doesn't. I don't think he's into this program because it does. Yeah. You know, in light of everything we've just talked about, how 1995 does it feel now that Shawn Michaels and Sid are having this feud over? Oh, we're friends, and it's like, hang on, didn't you just do that with Diesel like earlier in the year, and now we're doing it with Sid? Like, he feels like he doesn't like that. He doesn't like everything Bret's saying. He just obviously. Maybe he's been, tipped off that he's going to be dropping the belt, and he doesn't like that either. And he's just like, yeah, this is where it really bleeds through. That like he's just kind of losing it a bit, isn't he, Shawn? Like but the pressure is getting too much.
I suppose, and that leads us nicely in. Like, I've not got full match reviews, and I certainly welcome people to watch them here. Why don't you leave us a 5-star match review, and me and Benno would happily review all of these in long form. But it does lead us to the small matter of the Survivor Series Opposites Attack, where Bret Hart returns and is successful in his return match against Stone Cold Steve Austin in an all-timer. And then Sid becomes WWF champion in a Sid all-timer against Shawn Michaels, obviously, when he hits poor Jose Lothario with the camera. And Shawn is so distracted with the health of his manager that he gets distracted in the match, and Sid realizes that he will kind of go a little bit nasty to get it done, and maybe Shawn was all talk and he didn't have it in and all that. The notes I've got from these highlights that you kind of came across, and like I say, one of these days I would welcome anybody to invite us to review these matches, because I do them both. They're classics. Bret has talked obviously at length angrily about how when he watched the match back, Vince is already treating Bret like the old fossil who maybe has come back and the business has passed him by. And like, you kind of, I see where Bret's coming from, but after what we've just talked about, you kind of have to be putting Austin over as like the next big thing as well, because you must be seeing that gravy train and you don't want it to leave the station before it. So I think there's a bit of both in there, but I do get where Bret's coming from. And of course, and it's going to get factored into the storyline, the boos that Shawn Michaels receives in his match against Sid, that feeling that kind of out of nowhere, the response to the white meat Shawn Michaels character has kind of happened all at once. And it's happened in the worst place for it to happen for Shawn. It's happened in WWE's home ground of Madison Square Garden, where they've welcomed Bret back as the returning hero, where they've shown Steve Austin the love that this character's been getting, and where they've just put the fists out for Sid, who's the man? And it's Shawn Michaels, the fourth guy of four, basically being rejected by the home crowd.
I wonder if Bret and Vince had the moment in catering, like Nikki Bella and Wade Barrett. Are you calling old? History repeats, doesn't it? Here we are, all these years later, the same thing. It just stings that bit, doesn't it? When somebody says, just drops in that you're all saying, oh, but I'm still in my early 40s. I've still got a lot of life to go. Like, it'll sit with you, won't it? Like my mum will make half a comment about, oh, you're in your 40s now, Rich, and it just sits there like something Bret said about Shawn in the back of my head. You can't let it go. Like, we're all thin-skinned in all our ways, and Bret is no different. But like, yeah, this whole thing with like Sid, because I did watch a bit of it back, and obviously we'll give it a full review, maybe as a, like you say, a 5-star, or maybe we could go back and look at these pay-per-views one day. That could be a little idea for a project, maybe as well. But just watching it back, it's very like, I'm not even sure it's about Sid, really, is it? It's about, we're very quickly hitting, like you said, we're in the Attitude Era pretty much. Well, the crowd are ready for Attitude Era. The crowd are ready for something different. And Sid just fits the bill, doesn't he? It's just, very clearly they think in this world where we're about to get into 1997, that Sid doing this to Jose Lothario or doing this to Shawn Michaels is going to get him heat. Not like, of course it's not. Of course, like, this audience, especially in Madison Square Garden, especially in New York, they're going to fucking love it, aren't they? Because, like, that's the world we're moving into. We're, get ready. It's gonna hit you over the head in 1997, and like, that's like the old thinking, isn't it? Here, and Shawn's like a victim of it. And there's so many other factors to it. Like I say, is the Bret coming back and some of the seeds that he laid there in his promo, and just generally, how cool things are over on the other channel, and Shawn's still, like I say, turning up to work with his dad and doing a very, kind of lame main event babyface thing, like Diesel before him, like Bret before him, like a lot of the characters in the 90s, and people are ready for something else. And it does give you a great all-time moments. I think you would be the first person I sent the picture when I saw Vladimir at that AEW show in New Jersey last year at the end of the year and got a picture with him. Half the reason I got a picture with him because I distinctly remember from being front row at WWF shows, but this is the one I think of. I've seen him front row at this show, fist bumping Sid along with all the other New Yorkers. Like, there's something cool about like that rabid reaction to Sid there as well. But there's also something, that 12-year-old in me sees it quite tragic, seeing Shawn Michaels title runner end like this. But there's a million reasons why, and the future, they can't see it yet, but the future's a big part of it.
Indeed. So like they've crucially as well, I suppose, off the two big storylines and the two big dominant things going on in WWF, they've stuck the landing ultimately the pay-per-view. They can be very happy with how the Survivor Series has played out, and it kind of lays the ground. Yeah, it lays the groundwork for the stuff that's to come. It's just that like we've got the small matter of the December, historically like low effort December pay-per-view, and I guess it becomes like, right, how can we keep things hot between now and Christmas before we get into Royal Rumble season? Well, they sort of cheat it a little bit because it's at this point that you start hearing about the Alamo Dome. And obviously the Royal Rumble being in this massive 70,000 seat arena, a crazy bold move by a WWF that like commercially is in the bin at the time. And we see as this month progresses, one of the ways in which they intend to try and fill this Alamo Dome, and it's by basically confirming that Shawn Michaels will take on whoever the WWF champion is at the Royal Rumble. That's where he's going to get his fair and justified rematch. It makes sense. The San Antonio hometown hero, all that kind of, you can see why they went with that. Is like, whoever the champion is, here's our number one contender. But what it allows narratively is for them to finally now let Shawn just go off like somebody when you drop the shower head in the bath, where he can just spray off in any direction he wants. Because what we know after Survivor Series is that by beating Steve Austin, Bret Hart has become the number one contender at Sid's belt. So Shawn Michaels can fire his cannons in both directions because at least one of them is going to be fighting him at the Royal Rumble. And we start with a bang. It's the Raw after the Survivor Series. And obviously, as was increasingly becoming the way of things, you're going to hear from Shawn Michaels. He's in, and I should point out to the audio listeners only, Benno is wearing a black T-shirt for this recording. Why? Because we are paying tribute. This will be the final time that we see Jose Lothario. And at least to pour one out for Peanut Head himself. And at least we get to see the inside of his living room, because that's where Shawn is. He's stationed with Jose. There's a great cut where Vince is like, they're playing it as if almost like the microphones aren't on. And Vince is like, come on, Shawn, let's get ready for telly. But you can just see that Shawn is all the way wound up. So we cut to the house properly, and Vince is all very somber and serious. And he's like, look, before we get started, like, how is Jose? How are you doing, Jose? And Jose is like, I want to apologize, Shawn, for costing you the belt. It was because of me at Survival Series. Come on, mate, get the pay for your name right. You're nearly finished. He says his heart is damaged, but I'm going to be okay. And Vince says that like, we saw the press conference that you were there for. You're going to get the title shot Survivor Series. They only show clips of Shawn at that press conference because, if memory serves, he was pretty fucked up at it, so they couldn't air the footage of him. He wasn't in great shape for it. But Shawn says, I'm hearing that there's a difference between the old Shawn and the new Shawn, but I don't know the difference. People telling me I lost my edge. Nah, what's done is done. And Sid, like, I gotta be honest, like, yeah, Bret's fine. I don't care where I face you. Sid, you're the one where I want. You can stick your nose wherever you want. You can stick it in my business, but you hit Jose Lothario, and that was a step too far. Shawn gets, what a bastard. Shawn gets right down the lens and says, if there's one man in the WWF that will admit that he's beaten, he's a better man, it's me. But you didn't beat me the fair way, Sid. This is the man that's never jobbed for a title in his life before now. If there's one man, it'd be me. But you hit him with a camera, and then, like, you're the one I want. Bret, I'll get you another day, but Sid, it's you. It's like, oh, nice one for potentially burying its time in the 70,000 house you potentially draw at the Rumble. Shawn, it was supposed to be a mystery, mate. We were trying to sell tickets. Anyway, Vince takes the microphone back, and he's like, did the fans booing throw you off in Madison Square Garden? Shawn cuts him off. That didn't throw me off. Like, everybody knows that all I want to do is provide entertainment to the fans. I do it better than anyone. But if I can't, they can get it from somewhere else. I've got another agenda right now, and that's to be the WWF champion. If the people are behind me, fine. But I will not beg those people to be behind me. I'm not one of your role models. I'm not one of your heroes. If you're on my side, fine. If you're not, fine. And Vince is like, all right, mate, you've been a little bit defensive. And Shaw's like, defensive? I'm not defensive. I'll just do what it takes to get back to the top. I used to fight dirty in the past, and I'll fight dirty again. It's a cliche, but it's no more Mr. Nice Guy. I don't care if it's Bret, but I'd rather it'd be Sid. And Vince is like, well, good luck. And Shaw's like, I don't need the look, as the camera pans back away. Unbelievable stuff. I mean, it's all over the map. He's supposed to be selling that it could be Shawn or Sid or Bret because A, it's time to sell. B, there's fucking Royal Rumble tickets to sell, Shawn. There's 70,000 of the bastards. And he's already saying, I don't want one of those main events. I want you, Sid. But he's just so wound up, halfway trying to bury Bret, halfway trying to get his new heel character off, halfway trying to shoot on Vince for making him be the white meat babyface 6 months. A little bit pissed off with Jose Lothario. There's a lot of balls in the air for Shawn Michaels there, isn't there? A lot of balls in the air.
You missed the line at the end where he said, I would love it if I beat them. Oh, wait, wrong promo, wrong sport. But, like, it's basically, he's so rattled is the word. Like, this is the most rattled Shawn will ever be. Like, it is just, and, you know, they play into it. Like, I love that, like, that it's even a question. Did the crowd reaction bother you? Because, again, WWF 95, 96, or a couple of years before that would have dubbed over it and pretended it didn't happen. I like that they lean into it. But, like, Shawn, like, it's almost like, it's a bit like, you know, like, I'll use another mum analogy. Like, you know, when you get like a Christmas card or a birthday card as a kid, and you open it and there's no money in it, and your mum's like, say thank you for the card, say thank you for the card. Like, Vince is literally going, but obviously, you know, Jose Lothario, that's what you care about, isn't it, Shawn? Like, isn't that really terrible that Jose Lothario got hurt? And, like, eventually, you know, Shawn gets onto that point, but he's just sitting there seething, isn't he? Because he's thinking of everything but that. He's thinking of Bret. He's thinking of the crowd. He's thinking of, you know, the world, like, slipping through his fingers, like, that real life frustration. Like, God, like, even, like, down to, like, even when he's, like, poking Jose, or, like, he slaps him on the knee to be like, I'm just glad he's okay. He's literally, like, you can tell when the cameras go off, he probably digs him in the arm. Like, he just wants rid of the cunt, doesn't he? And to be fair, like, we've said it a million times, he shouldn't be. I'm sure once we get to the Rumble, we can do, like, we can do the retrospective on Jose's WWF run. But, like, it's this weird new Steve, like, given to Shawn Michaels, isn't it? As like this cool top line babyface, and here's him sat next to him, and this is like most of the time he played it off really well throughout the year. He plays it off really well, like he actually wants him to be there, sat on that couch there, like he wants to be anywhere else. I feel like he can see the writing on the wall. He can see the way things are going. He can see Bret's getting over. He can see Austin's getting over. He can see the crowd have kind of rejected him, and like he just wants away from like this presentation that they've given him, and he wants to do anything else.
That's it. Yeah, it's becoming a case of like, what's my spot? And all of them at this point are potentially on any given night rotating in and out of what the top spot even is. It's so delicately balanced because in their own way, and even Sid in their own way, they kind of all could put forth their argument about why they could be the guy, and everyone's got to play their moves just right. And like Shawn doesn't so much do it tactically, but his recklessness always works with Vince. So he knows that he can be more reckless than the other three in his next little political step. But we kind of it feeds into the next one because they've teed up on the following week's Raw. Shawn in the studio, they're promoting it as Shawn Michaels will apologize. So there's even like an acknowledgement that like he's gone too far the week before, and the camera's on him. And he's got the hair down this time. He's in a nice stripy shirt as opposed to looking a bit aggy the week before. And then he says, I want to apologize for not being defensive enough. And then he kind of goes back into it. He's smiling through it this week, but the biliousness and the venom is still there 1 week later. He's saying, look, I don't have a problem with humiliation or getting hit with a camera. But last week, my emotions did get the better of me. I'm an emotional guy. That's what I do. It's the same emotions that ultimately carried me to being WWF champion, and the same emotions that people felt in Madison Square Garden. But those people, and he does it again, they know that when Shawn Michaels is on the card, it's going to be the best match. And whether any of you like it or not, and this is obviously a dig about all the Playgirl stuff that Bret's dropped right back into the fire, whether anyone likes it or not, I'm a man's man. When it comes to the Royal Rumble, I'll come through. We got guys around here calling me a bad role model. If being honest and telling the truth and not being ashamed of bringing skeletons out the closet of the ring as being a bad role model, then I guess I'm a bad role model. I got my belly pierced. I'm hearing that certain guys don't like that. Look, I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I've become. I'm proud of it. And I'll be happy to throw it in the face of everybody in that locker room every chance I get. I mean, he's not said sunny days, but he basically spends the next 6 months saying sunny days, doesn't he? He is tiptoeing towards that line week after week after week after week. This role model stuff is like, it's putting me on edge. Like, funny if we're talking about skeletons in closets, Bret. Like, oh my God, it's Jesus Christ, mate.
It's so like the only line missing off this one is like, I'm not rattled. Nobody tell the newspapers I'm rattled because he's fucking rattled. Because again, you're right. This one, it's like the break. Because I would always say 1996 Shawn is my Shawn. And even when people who hate him will say that, how did you ever like him in 1996? He was so unlikable. I disagree. I found him quite likable. Even there, sat next to Jose Lothario, clearly wanting to just talk about Bret, but having to talk about the welfare of this old man. I actually find that more likable than this Shawn. Like this Shawn, when he's dressed up in the, like you said, the terrible shirt. He's had his hair done perfectly. He's had a tan. He looks like he's got makeup on, like everything about him. He's trying to be like this. He's trying to go back to be this mid-1996 phony babyface. And it's just clearly just window dressing, isn't it? Because the real Shawn is just bursting out where he wants to, it's still in his head. He wants to address all the things Bret said in that promo. He wants to address, like you say, the role model line in there as well. And like, it's just so like phony nice, isn't it? Like this is the really unlikable Shawn. Actually, prefer it when he's leaning into being a bit of a scumbag and he's clearly hungover on Jose Lothario's couch. This, where he's trying to dress it up like he's this shiny, good guy babyface, just doesn't work when, he's worse than Bret it was in that promo where he's just throwing those lines in. And I thought the same thing with the closet line. It's definitely Sonny he's thinking about, and he's just laying his cards out to deliver that line later.
It's funny, isn't it? Because this is almost like a situation of Shawn's own making. Because on paper, in the summer of 1996, if they're saying, right, you drop the belt to Vader, and then we're booking the Alamo for the Rumble, so you get to win it back. And he's like, obviously, he's the one that ends up sort of hijacking that. But on paper, he's thinking, but I'll wrestle. It's going to be the same. It's just with Sid, and I prefer working with Sid to working with Vader. He hasn't accounted for Bret Hart's return, the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Sid actually getting over and starting to ask questions of people at the top of the card. He's not factored in any of that. So then he's like, right, hang on. I need to be this edgy, cool heel. And Vince is like, wait a minute, mate. You're the white meat guy that's going to sell me 70,000 tickets. I need you so he's having it. You say about like being made up, like all of that is like the ticket selling, or shucks, come and join me in San Antonio. But every other bit of the character is just this off the rails bastard taking out everybody he can. Like, no, not Vince McMahon himself would have thought this was in the script. They had this down as like, I don't know what would be like an example of it, I suppose. Like Steve Austin losing the belt to Kane and winning it back on Raw the next night. They're setting something up for a different house. And when this has all been laid out, it's like, you know what, sod it, we'll get a stadium for the Rumble. We need a flex on WCW. Let's do the title switch so that the babyface wins it back. And then all of this happens. And Shawn's like, you can shove that up your ass, mate. I'm going to be Shawn Michaels. It's wild.
It feels like it's come out of nowhere. Like yes, we've joked, haven't we, about like the Goldust match, or we've joked about like, little moments where, Shawn spat at that fan, or like he did shitty things while he was world champion. But like it was, stuff that we noticed watching back. But in the moments you would never see. Like it's almost just Bret coming back and cutting that promo and being around, and like you say, the rise of it's just triggered something in him, isn't it? He's like a different person. He was hiding it really well in mid-1996, and now, like you say, off the rails, like doesn't even cover it. Like that's the Shawn obviously we would come to know and love him from this point forward. But it's like it's a massive change. It's the bastard he doesn't like in the office. That person that you don't like comes back to, they've been on maternity leave or something like that, and they come back. Not that I've got experience of that. That's never happened in my life. Not at all. But like that's basically what's happened, isn't it? That colleague he doesn't like working with has come back off their holidays and he's in a fucking shit mood again, and he's back to being like prime Hickenbottom, and good lord, does it escalate quickly.
Yeah, and we end this incredible journey on the go home for It's Time in Your House with the man where we started this trip, with Bret Hitman Hart. Obviously, in the first interview, he was returning, and in this one, he's doing his last words before fighting for the title, which is ultimately why he returned to the company. Again, there's like a sense that they're trying to present him as a little bit of a museum artifact. Jim Ross calls him the most honored athlete in the history of the WWF, the legendary Bret the Hitman Hart. It's almost like if Austin's your hot new guy and Shawn Michaels is your wild card and Sid is your WWF champion, it's like they're trying to box Bret somewhere else. Like, and ladies and gentlemen, Bruno Sammartino himself, the Hitman, like the kind of, he's not quite new generation as much as the other guys, but he's still good. He's still Bret. So Bret comes out, he's looking great again. He's got his double denim and his John Lennon's on. It's still there's like street clothes Bret now when he's doing his promos. Yeah. I think it's because on a Raw, Bret came out to do commentary and then Shawn ripped the piss out of him for doing commentary in his ring gear. And I think this is a response. I could be wrong. My timeline's out there. But so anyway, Bret, this is obviously the last Raw of a taping cycle because they put in like a taped insert here, but it's really helpful for our timeline because it catches you back up with Bret and Steve. So Jim Ross tees the interview up and says, look, in your house, you've got to beat the massive Sid. And then Bret says, well, yeah, I do, because things have gotten crazier than ever in the WWF. And that tees up this little series of videos. So to recap, the Raw after the Survivor Series, Bret Hart is having his, 2 weeks after the Survivor Series, he's having his first TV match back, and he's having it with Owen Hart. The brothers fighting once again. Owen's trapped in the sharpshooter, and Steve Austin just appears out of nowhere and wallops Bret in the back with a steel chair. He's taking him out. He's not letting it lie what happened at the Survivor Series. Owen's laughing along. They're going to Pillmanize Bret's ankle, and who makes the save but the British Bulldog himself? Even with other heels, he's like, nah, come on, that's far enough. We've done enough. And he takes the chair off Bret's ankle. And Steve Austin, being Steve Austin, is like, right then, you fucker. And he levels Bulldog with the steel chair. And that's to kick off their little mini feud, as obviously Bret needs to move away to Sid and Steve Austin needs something to do. So now he's in the mix with the Bulldog. They then cut. And I thought, when I gave this some thought, how intelligently this was laid out. They cut to a house show in London where Sid, the WWF champion, is about to powerbomb the Bulldog, who, of course, will be a situational babyface in London. And Bret returns the favor. He pulls Bulldog out of harm's way and saves the Bulldog. Not because they're friends, but just because it was the right thing to do. It's 1-1. And if there was one town where you could, like, babyface save the Bulldog, it's in England, it's in London. So he saved the Bulldog and he's got in Sid's face a bit. What are you doing that for? There's that hyena, Steve Austin again. He attacks Bret from behind and Bret just falls into Sid's lap and says, like, well, sod it. And Sid hits him with a choke slam. So now Bret has faced the power of Sid. Bret can't get away from Steve Austin. Steve Austin has developed a new beef with a Bulldog, and everything's nicely laid out going into its time. And Sid simply says, yeah, I felt the choke slam. I felt that rattlesnake, whatever. Sid, you're 6'9", but this won't be a wrestling match. You can throw the technical wrestling, try it out the window. I've thought of nothing but being champion. I want that world title, and nothing's going to stand in my way. Everybody talks about you snapping, Sid. Everybody's snapping around here in the World Wrestling Federation. Wonder what he's talking about. But he says, when I snap, I'll be the champion, which weirdly gets like a mixed response. More of that on the In Your House review. But when it comes to its time, I'm going to excellently execute Sid, and the music hits and the fireworks go off. And I feel like I've just been out for like a long run or a gym session, because we have reached the end of our housekeeping in your house between period. And it feels like, I feel like I'm saying this a lot at the moment. It feels like the whole world has changed again.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Like, and again, some of that footage reminded me of like the build to Shawn and Diesel, where they used the house show footage for that. It always looks a bit janky, doesn't it, when they show it on Raw? But like, it's actually use of it. But like the use of it here compared to then, like you say, it's a different world. And we're 6 months down the line. Like, we might as well be 6 years down the line here. It's absolutely crazy to think about like that. How the players have changed, how the pieces have changed, and how the world around it is just changing. And like, again, how long is this? An 8-week period between it in your houses? Like, it's nothing, and so much is happening.
It's crazy. Like, I know what's interesting as well. Like, now feels like the opportune time to talk about it. You've got every wrestler bigging up this card, and they're calling it It's Time. And I mean, like, it's the third show in a row that we've talked about now that, like, Vader was supposed to be a part of. There's that original Survivor Series poster with the 4 heads on, and it's Vader's head instead of Sid. Like, that exists, you know? This show is called It's Time, and he's not even on the card because he got injured fighting Yokozuna at the Survivor Series. Even Vader is the top heel. Even Camp Cornette now doesn't feel like a force because Bulldog and Owen are managed by Clarence Mason, and they're soon to not be managed by him because he's in the brief period of time we've been talking about, he happens to have joined a nation of domination that has been formed by the guy that was walking around in a blue gladiator hat last month. Like, you just can't. It's like somebody has taken the entire board and just flipped it and said, like, what have you got? What have you got? Let's see what you can do. Do you know that somebody was, Benno? It was fucking Jim Ross, mate. That's who it was.
I was going to give it to Vince Russo, but Jim Ross, I suppose. Maybe Jim Ross was going to Frighten Raw magazine at the time, too.
I was talking about, I forgot to mention it, but I was talking about how it was odd how Steve Austin's music would soundtrack the end of Shawn, or Sonny's would soundtrack the end of Bret. Did you catch on one of them? You could hear fake Diesel's music play in the background. It was like, oh, man.
Again, how was this at the same time? Like, that was, again, good not to go back to it, but like watching the highlights of Survivor Series 96, like, oh, there's that Survivor Series match in there with fucking Snooker and fake Diesel and fake Razor and all that. That's all happening at the same time. Both things are true. It's like this weird juxtaposition of these two eras all smashing together to come out roses at the end of it. But like, wow, it's a wild time.
I mean, just before we wrap up, and it has been a long one, and thanks everybody for sticking with us, but it didn't feel like anything was missable, did it? Like, we kind of, upon looking at it, you kind of had to cover it, you know? We've talked a lot, obviously, about Psycho Sid will be defending his WWF title against Bret Hart with Shawn Michaels on commentary. What could possibly go wrong? But elsewhere on the card, do you know what? I've not even mentioned this. Elsewhere on the card, as we go to preview it, the no longer punished Triple H will be defending his Intercontinental title against Mark Mero. In the time, he used Mr. Perfect to turn on Mark Mero.
He's gone. Yeah.
Then Perfect left the company. So he's gone. That's done. Right? So Triple H will take on Mark Mero in the kind of like the last chance Mero is going to get to win the IC title back. All the while Triple H is pissed off Goldust because Triple H came on to Marlena backstage. More on that in the next review. We've got The Undertaker, not quite finished with Mankind and Paul Bearer, taking on the Executioner, the man we met at Buried Alive, the mystery figure with the shovel that cost Undertaker, well, didn't cost him the match, but ultimately resulted in him getting buried alive. We've got Flash Funk, a Survivor Series debutant, taking on Leif Cassidy because Marty Jannetty has just upped and left the company and the New Rockers are no more. And in what is ultimately a sad ending to my big defense of the Jim Ross angle last month, Fake Razor and Diesel are just wrestlers now because they're getting a shot at the tag team titles against the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. I mean, and that's before I even mentioned, by the way, the dark matches will feature Salvatore Sincere taking on the Blue Chipper, Rocky Maivia, Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Goldust, and in a dark match, Shawn Michaels versus Mankind in a rematch from Mind Games.
We'll have to track that down if we can find it. Is Brackus on this as well? Brackus Dr. X? And they've got the list here. He's knocking around in the background. We've got to find footage of these matches.
Brackus versus Tom Pritchard in a hood, I'm not sure is out there. But if we can find it, we will review it. If it's out there, we will review it. Definitely. I have a feeling I've had my hands recently on these 3 dark matches, so I will get these across and we'll definitely include these in the review because we haven't had one of these in a while, have we? The last time we used to have these, it was frigging Undertaker versus Karma in the 15th casket match. Like
every show would have an Undertaker match. Again, that's the different world here. But in the difference in quality here as well as Razor and Diesel still stinking up the show. Now, I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm looking forward to discussing Flash Funk, like that's one. Obviously, he's when he came in, it was one of the early ones where I was going, hang on, that's just Too Cold Scorpion with a 70s outfit. What's going on here? That was a big shock at Survivor Series 96. But again, 1996 holds on, doesn't it? Like it all feels very 1997 in the top line programs, but there's still some 1996 wrestle crap in there. But it's good. It makes me feel like we're still touching reality there. We still got our hand in it, and that's what we review best. I'm looking forward to analysing all of that.
I want to thank everybody that listens or watches this podcast just for indulging me personally, because I consider this like this period one of my favorite periods in company history ever. I can't help but wonder, the more that we talk about it, if it's because it was the first time I felt like the Fed, the proper company, were having a dig back. I do wonder if the little tribalist me was a bit was getting a bit sick of seeing like the NWO on the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and just the sense that like, even as like an 11-year-old or whatever I was, just like, is something happening here? Is something like the memory I will always carry of the guilt I was feeling about feeling myself changing sides and itching for a bit more of Steve Austin, and being like, Bret, you're stumbling over your words a bit there, mate. And Austin's making a lot of points. Like, I love this. I love this so much. I do think sometimes if there was Desert Island Wrestling and you were given like 5-6 tapes, I wonder if I would just ask for kind of this period we've recapped, because you're right to mention the bullshit as well. You're right to mention how it's sitting alongside Flash Funk or, Fake Razor and Diesel. There's some of those TV tapings where there's still some, like they're still capable of it, but they're changing the game at the same time.
Yeah, massively so. And like, again, it's this period we're about to get into. I always say that about the WWF because like I am WrestleMania years old pretty much. WrestleMania 1 is the year I turned 1. WrestleMania 41 was the year I turned 41. Like if I'm ever unsure, if I'm getting a bit senile, I can't remember my age, I'll just look at what number WrestleMania we're up to. But I always feel like WWF grows up with me because I'm 12 here and I'm about to turn 13, about to become a teenager. And it feels like the WWF is about to become a teenager. It's about to lean into all those things, but it's still having that moment where you're a teenager, where sometimes, as you know, as a dad, they're still a kid really, though, aren't they, at heart? They're still a kid really at heart because they're going to wheel out Flash Funk, they're going to wheel out, Murderer Jimmy Snooker, they're going to bring out the Executioner is working the Undertaker, but the Undertaker's a goth now and he's got like a nice black leather outfit to go along with it because he's learning into his teenage side. It's those awkward growing years. That's what we're into here at the tail end of 96.
Do you ever feel like, because I'm in that exact same, I'm a year younger than you, but in that same bracket, do you ever kind of feel like somebody that right now, say, wasn't born between about like 1983 and maybe 1987, like I can't understand like what their version of the Fed is, because I'm the same as you. I see it through this prism where the whole thing was built for us. Like WrestleMania 1 taking place in 1985, it was like, this was a wrestling house that was built specifically for our age group. And that's followed right the way through. Like, and I always think like if other people's Fed journey fascinates me, because it's like, how did you get on then? Because the train was only coming up for our group. It wasn't like, how did like you, a 13-year-old in 2008, decide that's for me? That there's all sorts. It fascinates me because it feels.
You look back now, who've grown up on it, but that's the thing. Like we got it perfectly because the 20 years of crap that WWE served us came at a point where we started to get old and grumpy, and kind of there's a reason we're all still here because we enjoyed moaning about it, didn't we? We enjoyed getting into those grumpy older years. That was the prime of someone's life. Miz's 20-year run or Dolph Ziggler's 20-year run is their journey. Just they've experienced it a different way, but to do it the proper way, I think you have to be born in those years. I think 1990 is your jump off point, because even then you're about right, 9, 10. It's old enough to see some attitude there. It kind of works, but it blows my mind. There are new fans still being made now, mate, somehow based on those 3-hour Road Dogg SmackDowns, but they're out there. So. But brilliant stuff, I can't wait to dive back in. Feel like it's been a while since we've sat legitimately as a shoot it has, but for you listeners, it's only been a couple of weeks. But very excited to get into its time to get into all the stuff around it as well. But is it again, credit to you, Michael. You put together this incredible playlist of stuff for us to get into today. A love letter to 1996 Fed. Anything more on that or anything on it? I guess as we are up to date, we can talk our other endeavors that we've obviously got going on with it. A big weekend coming up this weekend as well.
Indeed, yes. As you're listening to this, potentially, I guess you may have seen the latest counter programming weekend. Like, I'm not even like dating it at this point because there's one every other week in North American pro wrestling. But to that point, yes, if you ever sort of listen to me plug in WhatCulture and anything like that, if you are listening to this here in the year of our Lord 2025, myself and fellow Dudley boy Michael Sidgwick have just put up a long-form podcast. We try, whenever possible, on our weekly reviews, which, if you're new to this, you can find us reviewing Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, etc. every week. We try not to turn every conversation into like a State of the Nation address, because you find yourself doing it by accident and chipping into the review. Easy. But we both, respectively, with WWE and AEW, kind of acknowledge that just we don't really like where TV is at currently, and we've put a podcast out talking about that across both sides. It's a very much an unbiased thing, because I take a look at the picture in the Fed, he takes a look at the picture in the dub, and I think there's a lot of problems on both sides here in 2020. It's been the weakest year collectively, I would say, since we've been back to the two company set up in North America. And yeah, that's available on YouTube and on audio if you search WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts. It's a discussion I was quite proud of. I like that we can be partisan, but offer, like, turns out the thing you love is also something you can not enjoy. And we're giving the opposite of, you can enjoy both shows. We're saying, you can dislike both shows at the same time. Yeah, and I don't know. I really enjoyed that conversation. I recommend it if people fancy a listen, or if they're sharing those feelings about the current products at this time. Maybe both companies could take a leaf out of WWF and WCW in 1996 by looking for something a little bit different, a little bit newer, maybe.
The lessons of the past are often unlearned, but they're right there. Read that history book, folks, or listen to that history podcast. That's probably the better plug there. No, I would co-sign that. Definitely check that out wherever your podcast is sold. And yeah, for us over on GRAPPL, like I say, we'll be putting this out. I'll probably put it out a bit early, because I know the weekend's going to be taken up with people indulging in you guys' content and other content all over be it on this WrestlePalooza / All Out weekend. But if you could stomach a little bit more of it, and you're not somebody who's a regular subscriber, over the coming weekend, we'll have plenty of audio up, including our full reviews of All Out and WrestlePalooza, which I believe we're doing as two separate shows. At least that's the plan this early in the week, basically because I can't get Matty to watch the AW pay-per-view, and I can't get Garrett to watch the WWE pay-per-view. So, but we're meeting both. We're doing our own blend split. There you go. Yeah. What you can't love them both, but you could hate them both. That's the lesson we're learning this week. But
so hang on, wait a minute. Is that another thing? So are you watching both of those to be on both reviews?
Oh yeah, I'm going to hate them both. That's my plan.
It's funny. It's funny that, because like me and you, as usual, are the common denominator. Because I think it's coming up. If you listen to WhatCulture, go and wish Michael Sidgwick a happy 40th birthday. If you're listening to this after I think the 22nd of September, but as a result, he's got like a lot of birthday plans throughout the weekend. And would you believe it? He's only going to have time to catch All Out in time for the review. So it's me and you, as we are with this in your house period, playing the constants, playing both sides, like channeling it all into our eyes, like in a Clockwork Orange. Whether it's Fed or whether it's AEW, we'll consume it all one way or another for the good of the content.
That's it. Like I've said this to Matty a few times on GRAPPL stuff. Not even sure I like wrestling anymore. I think I just like talking about wrestling. It's a thing to follow and to be into, and to monitor and analyze the news and stuff like that. It could be anything. It could be the footy. It could be politics. It just happens to be the wrestling for me. But my God, does it deliver in spades on these big weekends. But yeah, there will be plenty of moaning / if they're great, loving of those shows over on GRAPPL as well. But yeah, outside of that, follow me on Twitter at BensonRichardE. You can follow Michael.
I'm at Michael Hamflett. And until next time, when it's time, thanks for the house.
See ya.